It all kicks off on a bustling street packed with colorful lights, where folks are just soaking in that chilly winter vibe. Right in the middle of all that holiday decor, you can hear cheerful laughs echoing all over the place. Walking hand in hand, a dad asks his little girl if she had fun getting a super hyped yes in return. Right then, our MC Juin squeezes past them through the crowd. The little girl points up, totally amazed by the sheer size of some decoration. But Juin is just annoyed, wondering why he always has to shrink himself down to let others pass. Soon he realizes it makes sense. After all, he seems to be the only person flying totally solo out there. With that thought, he keeps walking toward the subway stairs. But suddenly he stops dead in his tracks. A surprised gasp escapes him as he glances to the side. He notices there is another lonely soul out on that freezing street. Lying on the icy ground, a guy dressed as Santa looks like he is really struggling with the winter cold. Holding a sign asking people to share a wish, he would normally just be ignored by Juin. But today is Christmas Eve, the exact day Juin lost his folks in an accident and ended up all by his lonesome. Feeling the heavy weight of that memory, he opens his wallet and pulls out some cash. Reaching out, Juin hands the money and a bag of hot food to the stranger. He leaves the donation on the box to give the poor old guy a hand. Out of nowhere, the man grabs his wrist with crazy strength, totally spooking our guy. The old dude says he wants to repay the kindness and demands to know what the young man's greatest wish is. Thinking the guy has completely lost his marbles, Juin tries to yank his arm back immediately. But no matter how hard he pulls, he literally cannot move an inch. Then the old man claims he came to grant the wish of a kind soul, completely overpowering the younger guy. Looking desperate, the old dude begs, saying he cannot go back home without finishing this mission. Tired of the nagging, our MC agrees to talk as long as the guy lets him go. Staring right at him, he starts spilling what he truly wants. But when he asks to win the lottery, Santa complains that the wish is not coming from the heart. At that, he actually stops to think about what his heart genuinely craves. Remembering his daily loneliness, the young guy realizes that all he ever wanted was a family. Getting a bit emotional, Juin reveals he dreams of having a sweet wife and a super cute little daughter. The old guy tears up, moved by the sincerity and the deep loneliness in those words. Super grateful, the man says he got incredibly lucky to find someone with a soul so similar to his own. With an intense look, he promises to find him a pure-hearted wife and a stellar daughter. Then the old man wishes the guy a life full of joy and happiness. Freaked out by all that crazy talk, Juin breaks free and sprints out of there. Still running, he can hear the man's distant shouts echoing down the stair. Right after, the subway train comes speeding down the tracks. Once inside the car, our guy tries to catch his breath after that totally bizarre situation. He questions the absolute nonsense he just heard, thinking it was all completely unhinged. Even so, deep down he knows exactly why he spilled his biggest secret. Looking at an ad for a happy family, he admits he wants that slice of happiness too. With that, the young man closes his eyes, just wishing for a normal life like everyone else has. Suddenly, a weird smell and a freezing chill start bothering him. Waking up super dizzy, he sits up feeling incredibly uncomfortable. But when he opens his eyes fully, he gets the shock of a lifetime. He realizes he is locked inside a wooden carriage rolling through an old-school village. Panicking, Juin grabs the carriage bars, having zero clue how he ended up there. Looking around, he notices other weak-looking prisoners sharing the space. Every single one of them looks to be in terrible shape, both physically and mentally. The whole scene makes the guy think he got ice-skied straight back to the Middle Ages. Freaked out by the possibility, he tries to process this totally surreal situation. Then he hears the guards talking outside, but he cannot understand a single word they are saying. Taking in the medieval scenery and the different-looking people, it hits him that he is definitely not in his home country anymore. Not knowing if this is a dream or real life, our guy starts to seriously sweat it. Then the reality check hits, really did end up in a totally different world. Panting, he tries to keep his cool while the vehicle keeps bouncing along. Suddenly, he notices the prisoner right next to him has dropped motionless to the floor. Checking the body, Juin apologizes when he sees the old man actually passed away. With that, he realizes he needs to focus completely on his own survival from here on out. Exhausted and totally drained, the young guy lies down on the cold floor of the carriage. In that moment, he wonders if this tragic mess was the happiness that Weirdo promised him. Praying to wake up from this bad dream, he totally loses track of how many days go by. While the carriage keeps rolling without a break, he stays locked in that tiny space. During the trip, our guy finds out everyone inside is being treated like slaves. Then he realizes the true shady reason behind this exhausting road trip. The guard's goal is to auction them off to the highest bidder in the villages. Until finally, someone unlocks the iron grate. The prisoners are lined up so the local boss can take his pick of the best ones. Even though his pride is bruised from being a slave, he starts feeling a tiny sliver of hope. Figuring his solid physical build will help him get bought fast, he sees this as his golden ticket to escape. But another young slave ends up catching the buyer's attention instead. As time drags on, the constant rejection just brings our guy pure despair. Then the carriage takes off again, leaving a trail of dust as they head to the next stop. They continue their endless journey down the dirt roads. Completely bummed out, Juan wonders if it is even worth trying to survive in these conditions. But the memory of his mom pops into his head, telling him to always live life to the fullest. Remembering his mom's advice about making the most of things, Juan thinks back to when he was younger and had his family's support to keep pushing forward. But tossed on the freezing carriage floor, he questions if he actually has the strength to endure all this suffering and isolation. Then the memory of that crazy Santa echoes in his mind, promising to grant his wish with all his might. Furious at the whole situation, the young man curses that stupid promise and wishes both his old world and this new one would go straight to the abyss. With that, he clenches his fists, realizing his true priorities have totally shifted in the face of all this pain. He starts feeling like the only way to end this non-stop suffering would be to just fade away right there. But right after, the guy regrets that dark thought and tries to get his will to live back on track. Determined not to perish in this miserable place for the sake of his beloved family, he suddenly hears a voice speaking words he cannot understand. Right then, our MC slowly lifts his head upon hearing that soft tone getting closer. He sees a delicate hand holding a piece of warm bread right in front of his face. Peeking through the carriage bars, Juan locks eyes with a sweet young woman named Dorothy who is offering the food. She says something in her local language, trying to comfort the weakened prisoner. Right behind her, a super adorable little blonde girl named Lizzie is also watching the scene, holding onto the bars. Then Dorothy steps even closer and gently offers the bread to the young man. Meanwhile, the trip finally takes a breather as they pull up to a small wooden cabin deep in the woods. Inside the modest wooden cabin, the young Dorothy and little Lizzie sit together at the table to eat. The little girl starts sipping her hot soup, making funny noises while totally enjoying her meal. Dorothy nudges the plate toward the little one, sweetly asking her to eat a bit more. But Lizzie hesitates for a second and stops eating, looking pretty thoughtful about the food. Saying the girl must still be starving, the mom explains that is exactly why she is sharing her portion. But little Lizzie points a finger and says if she is hungry, Dorothy must be feeling the exact same way. With that, she pushes the bowl back to her mom in an act of pure innocent sweetness. Touched by the kid's attitude, Dorothy says they will eat it together so they both stay strong. Suddenly, loud banging on the door ruins the moment, and the village elder's voice announces he is outside. Startled, Dorothy hugs the little girl while hearing the news that the local council decided to give her one of the slaves as a husband. The elder keeps talking, saying that once the deal is finalized tomorrow, she will have to head up the mountains with her new partner. He orders her to bring food for the soldiers at dawn, leaving the young woman even more panicked. Alone in the dark, Dorothy totally freaks out, having no idea what to do, and confessing her absolute terror of being abused again by this future spouse. Even shaking with fear at that harsh reality, she knows she cannot just run away from there. Looking at little Lizzie sleeping, the young woman realizes she does not have the heart to abandon this defenseless kid. Determined, Dorothy swears to herself she will never let the little one go through all that loneliness ever again. She remembers finding the little girl crying her eyes out in the corners after losing her dad. Little Lizzie's desperate crying echoed through the empty house, showing just how heartbroken she was. Back then, the little girl would sob non-stop on the cabin floor, completely helpless. Seeing so much pain, Dorothy wondered what would become of their future from then on. Huddled in the corner of the room, she dreaded reliving the terrible nightmare she went through in the past. The young woman stares into space as the bitter memories of her own backstory start flooding back. She looks at Lizzie sleeping, hugging her teddy bear, and realizes the girl's pain is super similar to her own. After all, the 5-year-old just lost her dad recently and still had no direction in life. Then Dorothy sadly remembers the time her own father traded her to Hunter for a single rabbit pelt. On her very first day arriving at that forest cabin, she was brutally attacked by her late husband before she could even unpack. The reason for his violent outburst was simply that she was a little late arriving at the place. Realizing her life was going to be an endless nightmare because of that cruel guy, the young woman felt totally destroyed. Completely battered and out of energy, she spent her nights crying on the dark cabin floor. Until little Lizzie quietly approached, watching the situation with a super worried look. Lying on the freezing floor, the young woman could barely move because of all the injuries on her body. But in that awful place, the blonde little girl was the only one who stepped up to offer some comfort. The little one sat right next to her, showing genuine concern for her condition. The sweetness of that angelic kid was what gave Dorothy the strength to keep enduring it all. Soon enough, the two of them were completely alone in the cabin after the hunter vanished into the woods. According to local rumors, he ended up getting taken out by wild wolves during a hunt and was never coming back. Knowing he was gone, Dorothy felt a massive wave of relief, but also got super stressed about the future. After all, a woman without a partner would be totally unprotected against the strict rules of that village. She knew she had to figure out a way to take care of the girl even with zero support. Taking things day by day, the two decided to take a walk together through the peaceful village streets. Suddenly, Lizzie points excitedly at the road, noticing something unusual rolling up. Curious, she yells out that a carriage is coming and gets the young woman's attention. Dorothy stares at the vehicle loaded with iron bars hauling those weakened prisoners. As they get closer to see what the deal is, they spot the guys locked up in cages. Right then, the young woman gets a jolt when she locks eyes with our MC's exhausted gaze through the bar. Seeing Dorothy holding out the bread, Juan gets hit with a painful flashback from his past on Earth. He remembers when his own dad used to get violent with his mom at dinner, yelling insults and taking all his anger out on her. Back in the day, the aggressor would complain she was just causing drama for attention. The guy would claim her ridiculous scene ruined his appetite, leaving his mom crying on the floor while she shielded little Juan. That horrible memory makes our MC shed a silent tear as he relives all the helplessness of his childhood. But he snaps back to reality when he meets the kind eyes of the young woman still standing right in front of him. Dorothy pulls another piece of bread out of the straw basket she is carrying. Holding Lizzie's hand, the young woman walks with purpose straight toward the slave carriage. With a gentle gesture, she offers the food to give the weakened prisoner a little comfort. Looking down at Juan, Dorothy tries to pass on some warmth and hope during his tough spot. Suddenly, the villagers shouting about the soldiers arriving interrupts their little moment. The village leader barks an order for her to head back to the settlement immediately while they greet the troops. Following orders, the young woman says goodbye to Juan and starts walking away with little Lizzie. But the little girl glances back one last time, watching the guy locked in the carriage. Alone in his cell, our MC holds the piece of bread with both hands, feeling like that act of kindness sparked something in his heart. Scarfing down the bread in a hurry, a starving Juan tries to get his strength back while still stuck in that dark cell. Suddenly, the guards yank the carriage door open, screaming orders for all the prisoners to get out right now. Getting dragged out roughly, our MC ends up face-planting straight into the dirt, unable to catch his fall. A groan of pain escapes his throat from the sudden brutal impact. Then the slaves are lined up in front of the local soldiers to kick off the day's selection process. One of the soldiers steps up to a prisoner looking real menacing to start some weird ritual. Using a small sharp blade, the guy makes a quick slice on the slave's hand to draw a little blood. Right after, he whips out some mysterious scrolls that start glowing crazy bright, making Juan wonder if he is witnessing actual magic. Totally wiped out, the young guy takes a deep sigh, trying to wrap his head around what kind of bizarre world he landed in. Then the village elder mutters some gibberish words while closely analyzing our MC's situation. With that, Juan is forced onto his knees next to the soldier to wait for his ultimate fate in that village. Looking around totally confused, the guy tries to process everything going down without understanding a lick of the local language. Meanwhile, a late afternoon calm settles over the tiny village, surrounded by trees and rustic cabins. A voice tells Dorothy to grab a huge bundle of supplies, adding that the village will keep throwing food her way for a bit. Inside the cabin, the older lady explains that her new husband does not know a single word of their language, warning that they will have to pay for all this later. The lady goes on saying the village could not stand the old hunter and only put up with him because they needed a mountain watchman. She adds that the new guy should be a totally different story, since he is just a regular commoner, at least according to the soldiers. She points out that the guy's hands and feet are super soft and delicate like a noble's, even though he looks built like a brick house. She guarantees he has never hurt a fly, and that if he just works hard, they will all live super well in that cabin. But the young woman replies, sounding super defeated, saying she does not need a fabulous life or a bunch of riches. Her only real wish is that this new husband turns out to not be a violent, cruel jerk like her late one. She just wants him to leave them alone in some corner of the house while she tucks Lizzie into bed. Suddenly, insanely violent banging on the door scares the young woman, followed by the elder's voice demanding they open up immediately. Dorothy jumps out of her skin and instinctively shields the little girl in her arms. The heavy knocking just keeps echoing through the wooden walls of their humble forest cabin. The second the door swings open, the village leader barges in, announcing he finally brought the guy she is going to marry. Totally blindsided, the young woman asks if that is really her husband, while the old man orders them to drag the guy inside. Being led slowly through the entrance, Juan looks around super confused, wondering where the heck he ended up this time. The old man complains about how fragile the prisoner is, asking why they are dragging a sick guy around like that. Checking out the guy's massive silhouette in the doorway, Dorothy wonders if this absolute unit of a man is seriously her new husband. Blown away by his colossal size, Dorothy admits she has never seen anyone so huge and strong in her entire life. Our MC looks over at her, curious, as he notices the young woman standing in the cabin. He instantly clocks that the lady in front of him is the exact same kind soul who offered him that piece of bread back in the carriage. But when he notices she is shaking like a leaf, Juan gets super puzzled about why she is so freaked out. The elder aggressively grabs Juwon's arm and yells in his local language, telling him not to just stand there. Shoving the guy forward roughly, the old man orders him to get closer to the terrified girl right now. The two of them end up face to face in the most awkward silence ever, with everyone else staring a hole through them. Suddenly, the old man grabs Juwon's hand with serious force to force the new couple together. Jamming their hands together abruptly, he totally ignores how shocked both of them are by this weird setup. The old guy declares that the two of them look like the ultimate perfect couple, leaving Dorothy and Lizzie totally speechless. Completely lost in the sauce, Juwon tries to piece together what all this means based on the vibe of the room. Until a scary flashback of that crazy Santa promising him a pure-hearted wife and a stellar daughter pops into his head. The guy had said his bride would be as sweet as a bunny, making Juwon instantly link that cute image straight to Dorothy. And that his daughter would be like a little mongoose, meaning Lizzie's cuteness fits the old man's description flawlessly. Shook by the realization, our MC's eyes go wide as he figures out that weird old dude actually made his Christmas wish come true. Looking at his new family, Juwon thinks Santa really did not need to go so overboard as to yeet him into a fully medieval world. He wonders if it was truly impossible to get this family package without having to suffer as a literal slave first. With his expression turning dark, the guy starts brewing some serious resentment against all this divine madness. He silently vows to absolutely wreck that crazy old man if their paths ever cross again. Meanwhile, Dorothy and Lizzie stare in horror at the scary aura and menacing look radiating from the guy in that dark corner. The next day, the scene shifts to the middle of the woods, where Juwon is walking alongside a village hunter. Our MC thinks to himself that he is practically losing his mind because he cannot understand a single word of their language. The hunter starts chatting casually with another local passing by on the forest trail. Suddenly, the guy holds his hand out to Juwon, leaving our guy super confused by the hunter's friendly vibe. But when they shake on it, the hunter squeezes with ridiculous strength, testing our MC's physical limits. Feeling the insane pressure, Juwon wonders if crushing someone's hand bones is just the standard greeting around these parts. Closing his eyes, he decides to hit back on this little strength test in his own special way. With a brutal, ruthless grip, Juwon absolutely crushes the hunter's hand, making the guy's eyes pop out from the intense agony. The guy drops to his knees, screaming, begging for mercy through the pain, while our MC keeps his face totally chill and steady. Letting go of the crushed hand, the young guy just watches the dude whine in pain while massaging his bright red fingers. Recovering from the shock, the hunter seriously hands Juwon a bow and arrow and points out toward the woods. Our MC wonders why he is being handed a weapon, figuring from the vibe that the guy is not trying to start a brawl. Holding the rustic wooden bow, he watches the hunter act out some explanatory gestures right in front of him. The guy puts his hands on his head, mimicking bunny ears to hilariously signal what their target is. It finally clicks for Juwon that the hunter wants to test his skills and teach him the local hunting ropes. The instructor points swiftly and silently toward a small bush nearby. Whispering anxiously, he orders our MC to get ready to fire the arrow at the hidden target immediately. Right in the underbrush, a fluffy white bunny is just chilling, munching on some leaves, totally clueless to the danger. Getting ready to aim, Juwon hesitates, remembering he has literally never held a bow in his life, and this is getting desperate. He thinks back to those archery tournaments on TV, figuring hitting such a tiny target from this distance is basically impossible. Gathering all his brute strength, the guy pulls the bowstring back and fires with a massive burst of energy. Suddenly, the arrow tears through the air at supersonic speed, creating a destructive shockwave that completely spooks the little bunny. Totally shell-shocked by the absolute destruction around them, our MC and the hunter just stare, unable to believe their eyes. The arrow violently smashed right through several trees, leaving a trail of smoke and chaos in its wake through the forest. Meanwhile, Dorothy and little Lizzie are having a peaceful walk through the woods, carrying a basket and enjoying the sunny day. Suddenly, Juwon hears a noise coming from the trees and whips around, going on high alert when he notices someone approaching. Peering carefully through the bushes, our MC spots two familiar figures strolling through the sunlit forest. Seeing it as Dorothy and little Lizzie holding hands, his heart skips a beat as he realizes this sweet lady really is his fiancée. In that moment, a super warm feeling floods Juwon's chest, his heart pounding like crazy just from looking at her. Seeing the scene, the hunter next to him bursts out laughing, while our guy stays frozen, trying to process the encounter. A bit later, they all decide to take a break, chilling on a white cloth spread over the grass to enjoy some downtime. Being super sweet, Dorothy leans forward and offers a bowl of hot food to her new partner. Looking down at the plate, Juwon sees a steaming stew packed with chunks of meat and cooked veggies that look seriously fire. The second he takes the first spoonful of the homemade soup, he tastes the comforting flavor and is blown away by the simple seasoning. The young guy starts digging in like there is no tomorrow, making Dorothy and Lizzie super happy to see he is loving the food. Pausing for a sec, Juin looks at the two of them with a calm, thoughtful gaze. His face shifts into a lighter, more relaxed look, feeling a sense of peace he has not experienced in a long time. Watching them from a distance, the guy thinks about what family really means, something that felt so out of reach from his school days all the way to hitting 30. But now a real home got handed to him right out of left field in the middle of this wild forest. Even though he knew building this relationship step by step would be ideal, Juin figures the order does not matter after all the crazy stuff he just went through. Lying back on the soft grass, Juin jokes in his head about wanting to wreck that crazy Santa, but at the same time he is feeling pretty grateful. Staring up at the clear sky, he silently gives thanks for finally finding a cozy, safe haven right beside these two. The next day, their routine kicks into high gear as they hit the road toward their new spot up in the mountains. Hauling a massive bundle of luggage on his back, our MC keeps looking back, worried if they are managing to keep up the pace. Meanwhile, Dorothy struggles to walk while holding Lizzie's hand, clearly wiped out by the super steep climb. Feeling frustrated, Juin hates that he cannot even ask if she is okay because of the massive language barrier between them. Because of that, he decides he needs to adapt to this new reality ASAP so he can actually talk to them. Suddenly, the young guy stops dead in his tracks right in the middle of the dirt trail. His mom's memory echoes in his head, telling him to never ever hesitate when it is time to protect someone important. And that the second he feels that strong urge to care for someone, he needs to act on it, immediately, 0 second thoughts. Snapping back to reality, Juin turns around and slowly walks up to the two of them trailing behind. Noticing Dorothy is completely exhausted, the guy realizes Lizzie is also totally running on fumes. With tears in her eyes, the blonde little girl lets out a scared whimper, totally drained and terrified of the hike. Our MC drops to one knee to get on their level and warns them he is going to pick them up, asking them not to freak out. Totally blindsided by his move, Dorothy freezes up just watching him get closer with no clue what to do. Speaking in Korean, Juin tries to explain himself, but his gibberish words just make Dorothy and Lizzie even more confused. Spooked by the guy's serious tone, the little girl starts crying softly, shrinking back in fear. He realizes his intense face might be a bit intimidating and decides he needs to soften his look so he does not terrify them. Asking for permission in a gentle voice, the young guy leans in to make his move before they get even more scared. Suddenly, Dorothy lets out a gasp of surprise when she feels the guy firmly grab her waist and lift her right off the ground. Grabbing onto his shoulders so she does not fall, the young woman tries to balance, while the giant comfortably settles her in his arms. Right after, Juin reaches out with his free arm and scoops up little Lizzie with the exact same care and ease. Standing tall on the trail, the guy holds both of them at once with his insane strength, proving the weight is literally no big deal. Shocked by the sudden altitude, the little girl grabs onto his luggage tightly and lets out a surprised squeak when she realizes she is being carried. Dorothy looks down at the ground that just got a lot further away, still not believing the absurd strength this guy packs. Telling them to hold on tight, Juin makes them feel safe, causing the young woman to relax once she notices his protective vibe. As he starts speed walking through the forest, he is genuinely surprised that both of them together feel light as a feather on his back. Realizing this, he decides he needs to learn how to hunt ASAP so he can feed them properly with plenty of fresh meat. Thinking about how crazy busy his life is gonna be from now on, the young guy pushes forward under Dorothy's watchful, admiring gaze. Giving in to the exhaustion, the young woman gently rests her head near his shoulder, feeling a sense of safety she has not known in ages. Feeling a light tap on his shoulder, the guy stops walking when he realizes they finally hit their destination. Super carefully, he sets Dorothy back down on the ground, making sure she has her balance before letting go completely. With that, they walk the last few yards of the trail toward the rustic cabin standing out in the thick woods. Thanking the hunter for guiding the group, Dorothy politely says goodbye to the guy while our MC checks out the house. As the guide heads back to the village, Juin scopes out the wooden structure of that old, isolated cabin. Pointing to the entrance, she mentions this is going to be their new home, while the guy worries the place might be even more freezing than his old room. Hating the bitter cold, he mentally complains about having to deal with such low temps in that uninsulated shack. Taking charge, Juin pushes the old wooden door open to see what shape the inside is. But when he looks inside, he lets out a shout of surprise, noticing something completely unexpected in that room. Peeking over his shoulder, Dorothy goes into total shock when she sees how completely trashed and abandoned the place is. Suddenly, the young woman bursts into tears of absolute despair, leaving our MC super confused and having no idea why she is so heartbroken. Unable to hold it, and she runs straight into the cabin, totally ignoring the guy calling out to try and calm her down. The young man steps in right behind her and watches Dorothy panicking in front of the completely empty wooden shelves. Standing in the middle of the room, Juin finally pieces it. Tojerth locals absolutely looted the place. Scanning the room, he gets furious, realizing they took literally everything the old hunter owned, including the tools and weapons. Worried Juin thinks about how winter is coming fast, and without tools he cannot fix the house or protect them if wild beasts show up. Walking through the nearby woods, the guy finally spots Dorothy sitting on the ground crying quietly among the trees. Approaching calmly, he sits down next to her on the dry grass to offer some support during this super rough moment. With a sweet gesture, Juin places his hand on Dorothy's head to try and comfort her, surprising her with the sudden affection. Feeling Juin's gentle touch, she looks up with tears still in her eyes, really touched by the guy's genuine concern. Speaking in a chill voice, the guy tells her not to worry, making the young woman try to decode what those kind words meant. Staring right at the guy, Dorothy realizes that this is the man she has to share the rest of her life with from now on. Even knowing they cannot communicate, and that he has no clue how to hunt, she feels a deep sincerity coming from him in that moment. But she still wonders if they can actually survive together in a place as wild and ruthless as this mountain. Looking totally serene, our MC keeps a warm expression to soothe the fears troubling the young woman's heart. Juin mentally promises that he will protect her from everything, making Dorothy feel a spark of hope amid all the uncertainty. Locking eyes with him, the young woman feels the heavy weight of her doubts start to fade under the guy's gentle protective touch. A single tear rolls down her cheek, sealing a silent, deep connection that just sparked between the two of them. Under the warmth of the late afternoon sun lighting up the forest, the new couple stays close in a moment of pure bonding and peace. Feeling an unexpected relief in her chest, Dorothy wonders why she feels so incredibly safe next to this stranger she literally just met. Thinking back on his past life, Juin remembers he was always completely alone since the day his parents passed away. But even dealing with all that extreme loneliness, he always fought hard and stood his ground to survive somehow. Now our MC realizes he actually has a real family by his side, meaning there is zero reason he cannot endure whatever gets thrown at him. He tries to calm Dorothy down, promising he will do whatever it takes to take care of and provide for the three of them from here on out. Hearing that, the young woman lets out a long sigh, looking like she feels a bit better after the guy's comforting words. Right then, the quiet of the woods is totally shattered by the loud rumbling of our MC's starving stomach. Hearing the noise, little Lizzie comes running frantically toward them, yelling a bunch of confusing stuff in her local language. Super worried, the little girl throws herself in front of her mom and begs the guy not to hurt them. Watching that cute scene play out, the group hangs out by the edge of the lake, surrounded by massive mountains under the evening light. Looking at Dorothy, our MC reflects on what it is like to have a woman crying so helplessly in his arms. But seeing a kid crying right next to her gives him this weird feeling, since it is a totally brand new experience for him. A bunch of questions pop into his head about who this kid is and why Dorothy gave him that bread back then. The young guy also wonders what the real story is behind all of the young woman's suffering and tears. But he feels pretty strongly that if they keep living together and put in the work, they are definitely going to become a super tight-knit family. Making up his mind, Juin hugs them both warmly and silently vows to be the best partner and dad they could ever ask for. And he swears neither of them will ever regret walking into his life and becoming his new family. As the day wraps up, the small wooden cabin sits totally quiet in the middle of the forest, completely boxed in by trees. Inside the dark room, the three of them settle down on the wooden floor in a slightly awkward silence. Scratching his head, the guy notices that the close connection they felt out in the woods seems to have vanished now that they are indoors. But he is relieved to see that the two of them just look curious, instead of having that terrified look from earlier. Suddenly, our MC gets a lightbulb moment on how to break the ice and get some kind of conversation going. With a quick gesture, the guy points right at his own chest, grabbing the attention of the two girls who are watching him closely. Flashing a friendly smile, the young guy says his own name out loud to properly introduce himself. He repeats his name slowly to make sure they catch it, figuring they should at least know what to call each other. Seeing she got the hint, our MC waits patiently for the young woman across from him to respond. He gestures toward her, hyping her up to drop her own name so they can get to know each other better. Hesitating, the young woman tries to whisper something, making the guy lean in to hear her clearly. Pointing at the blonde little girl next to her, Dorothy introduces little Lizzie to the guy, and he gets it immediately. Our MC compliments the kid's name in a super nice way, even though she just keeps staring at him without understanding a thing. Turning back to the lady, Juin insists on finding out her name to finally wrap up the house intros. But the vibe in the room gets weird out of nowhere, making our MC realize he just stepped on a massive landmine. Looking at the girl's sad face, Juin wonders if the young woman seriously does not even have her own name yet. Faced with their silence, the guy gets lost in thought, trying to figure out a fix for this super awkward situation. He decides he is going to pick a really beautiful name for her, leaving the little one totally amazed by how nice he is. Thinking of a famous story from his old world, the guy chooses the name Dorothy to give to the young mom. He explains it is a tribute to a brave little girl who goes on huge adventures and makes a bunch of loyal friends along the way. And that just like the character in the story, she will also find her own happiness and live a great life from now on. Hearing the little one try to pronounce her mom's new name, our MC, encourages her sweetly, saying that name will bring awesome friendships. The little girl smiles super bright, while the young woman quietly repeats her own new name, trying to get the hang of it. The next day, the guy is grinding hard, chopping firewood outside the cabin to build up their winter stash. Watching him bust his chops from a distance, Dorothy thinks to herself that this guy is seriously weird and super mysterious. She realizes that even though he is way bigger and stronger than her late husband, he treats her with extreme gentleness instead of violence. She notices he is totally different from all the brutal guys that have crossed her path up until today. Saying his name in her head, the young woman thinks it sounds pretty fancy and notices a comforting sweetness in his voice. Looking back on her rough past, she wonders why this guy is being so incredibly nice to her without asking for a single thing in return. Then he turns around and flashes her a super warm smile, making the young woman totally lose her train of thought over his sudden kindness. Hiding behind a tree, Dorothy feels her face burning up and concludes that this guy definitely does not belong in this rustic place. Right then, our MC waves happily at little Lizzie when he spots her playing nearby in the woods. Looking closely at him, the young woman pays extra attention to the striking details of his dark hair and eyes. That makes her remember an old rumor she heard about a faraway kingdom that managed to summon a legendary hero from another world. The locals used to gossip that this legendary warrior had the exact same dark color in his eyes and hair. Watching the guy effortlessly haul those heavy logs, she starts connecting the dots to that old bedtime story. Looking super close, the young woman notices his features actually match the descriptions of that warrior pretty well. But she quickly tosses the idea, thinking there is zero chance a legendary hero would be living this humbly up on their mountain. After all, it was just some distant rumor that probably had absolutely nothing to do with their actual reality. Suddenly, Dorothy realizes the guy quietly walked up and is now staring down at her, looking curious. Checking out the details better in the sunlight, she notices his hair is actually more brown than black. Feeling a massive wave of relief, the young woman takes a deep breath, realizing he is just a normal albeit super strong guy. But then she gets totally confused about why she felt that sudden relief, considering they literally just met. Completely mixed up about her own feelings, she shakes her head, trying to clear her thoughts. Right then, the guy reaches out gently and gives the startled young woman a soft head pat. Feeling his warm touch, Dorothy realizes she is absolutely not used to getting this kind of affection from anyone. She sadly remembers that in her past, a man's hand on her head always meant she was about to get hit. But our MC's firm hand keeps stroking her hair so gently that it completely melts away the fear in her chest. Enjoying the comforting moment, the young woman closes her eyes and silently wishes he would keep petting her. Feeling her heart racing, she admits to herself she really wanted him to never stop doing that. With a slightly flushed face, the guy slowly leans in toward her, making the vibe even more intense. Staring back with blushing cheeks, the young woman holds his gaze, anxiously waiting to see what happens next. Then our MC seals her lips with a sweet, passionate kiss under the golden evening light in the forest. Even though she is surprised by the sudden move, the young woman totally surrenders to that amazing, cozy feeling. Pulling back slowly with a slight blush, the guy watches her fondly to see how his new wife reacts. Suddenly, they both jump out of their skin when they notice little Lizzie standing right there, watching the whole thing in pure shock. Totally embarrassed by getting caught, the guy backs away, not knowing where to hide his face, while the young woman stutters, turning beet red. Trying to escape the cringe, our MC quickly grabs a wooden bucket and decides to go fetch some water in the woods. Gripping the handle, he speed walks away from there to try and cool off after that insane situation. Running for his life with the bucket, Juin tries to get as far away as possible, while Dorothy watches him vanish into the trees, totally clueless. Left alone in the same spot, the young Dorothy puts a hand over her heart, blushing like crazy in total silence as she remembers that sudden kiss. Power walking through the forest with his bucket, Juin mentally curses himself, calling himself a lunatic, and wondering what the heck she is thinking of him now. Scratching the back of his neck in pure panic, the guy thinks about how even though they are legally married, they literally just met today. Stressed out, he regrets that they cannot even talk to each other and wonders if it would be better to just pretend none of that ever happened. Stopping in his tracks, our MC decides to shelve those thoughts for a sec and just focus on his current chore. Looking around the thick, dark underbrush, Juin realizes he walked way too far and wonders where on earth he ended up. The silence of the dark woods gets shattered by weird noises coming from the shadows, making the vibe super tense. Whipping around, the guy decides it is best to grab some water fast and figure out a way back to the safety of the cabin. In that exact second, Juin freezes completely, going on extreme high alert when he hears a threatening sound super close by. A dark, terrifying silhouette suddenly bursts out of the bushes, revealing itself right in front of the spooked guy. Baring its razor-sharp teeth, the beast growls insanely aggressively at our MC, who tries his best to keep his cool. With a loud, terrifying snarl echoing through the trees, the guy takes a step back and braces for the worst. Staring down the creature slowly creeping toward him, Juin recognizes it as a giant wild wolf. Crouching down slowly to grab the wooden bucket, the guy locks eyes with the predator in dead silence, knowing one wrong move means it is game over. Moving fast, the guy drops down and manages to grab a thick fallen branch to use as his only weapon. The wolf charges fiercely, leaping straight at our MC, who braces to tank the impact. Sinking its sharp teeth right into the wood, the beast tries to smash through Juin's block with pure brutal force. Gritting his teeth in absolute agony, the young guy screams, while trying to shove the starving beast away with everything he has got. The violent clash sends the guy flying brutally into the damp forest floor after the branch snaps in half. Feeling the beast's teeth closing in, Juin curses this nightmare scenario and tries everything to stop it from biting him. Gripping the animal's neck with his bare hands, the young guy refuses to accept this tragic game over in the middle of nowhere. With an intense blue glow sparking in his eyes, the guy yells with total determination that he is absolutely not going to perish here. The beast goes in hard, trying to bite his arm, making our MC let out a groan of pure pain from the extreme effort. Suddenly, an unbearable pain rips through Juin's body, making him scream, as he feels an intense burning racing through his veins. With a fiery glare, the guy leaves the wolf totally confused and freaked out by this massive shift in energy. Having zero clue what is going on, the young guy watches in shock as red flames start engulfing his entire body. Staring at his own hands covered in blazing fire, Juin makes the wolf back off in terror from the extreme heat. Capitalizing on the animal's panic, the guy stands up looking like a boss wrapped in living flames to finish this fight for good. With a furious roar, the young guy unleashes a devastating fiery punch that hits the creature dead on in the middle of the dark forest. Landing the ultimate hit, the guy triggers an explosion of flames that completely incinerates the wild wolf on the spot. Dropped motionless on the damp ground, the defeated animal takes its last breath while smoke rises from its body. Collapsing exhausted on the grass, Juin tries to catch his breath, confused as heck if that actually just happened. Checking his own hand, he is shocked to see his clothes and skin do not have a single burn mark on them. The guy starts wondering if what he just pulled off was legit magic in this medieval world. Remembering the stories he read back on Earth, he figures getting op powers after getting ice-guyed is actually pretty standard. He thinks about how this exact cliché happens all the time in fantasy and adventure novels. Raising his hand to the sky, our MC decides to do a quick field test to see if he can pull it off again. Yelling out the name of a classic fire spell, he points his arm, expecting a massive fireball to shoot out of his palm. But after spamming the move with zero results, the young guy is left looking goofy in the awkward silence of the woods. He keeps shouting names of other op spells while lying in the grass, trying absolutely everything to trigger the power again. He even resorts to chanting and summoning fire spirits, but realizes absolutely nothing is happening around him. Looking like a total clown, Juin figures it was not an illusion, noticing his injuries are already almost fully healed. Scratching his head, he thinks mastering this mystery power would be the ultimate cheat code for hunting and taking care of his new fam. Picturing a happy future with Dorothy and Lizzie eating like queens, the young guy feels super motivated to go all out for them. He figures that with this healing power, he will be able to patch them up instantly in this isolated mountain village that definitely has no doctors. Walking back, Juin decides to chill and think it through, knowing that stuff that happens once usually happens again. Suddenly, the bitter memory of his grandpa's funeral hits him, the last relative he had before losing him in an accident. He painfully remembers his uncle attacking him at the funeral, blaming the young kid for the whole family tragedy. Screaming with pure hate, the guy raged that his grandpa and dad only passed away because they decided to take the kid in. Surrounded by furious relatives humiliating him, young Juin cried, not understanding why they were treating him like garbage. He remembers bitterly that his whole family basically viewed him as a cursed plague that only brought tragedy. Pushing the sad memories away, our MC hefts the heavy wolf and decides he better skin it before more beasts show up. Hauling the massive animal on his shoulders, he picks up the pace so he can make it home before it gets pitch black. With a slight smirk, Juin thinks the butchering tricks he learned watching his grandpa on the farm are finally gonna pay off. Under the full moon, the guy walks the trail, thinking fondly that his late grandpa would love seeing him this strong. While he walks, he wonders how the heck he is going to train and control this mystery energy he just unlocked. Safe inside the cabin warmed by the fireplace, young Dorothy and little Lizzie are getting things ready for dinner. Holding an empty plate, cute Lizzie helps with the chores and happily asks for a bowl of hot soup. Getting a sweet head pat, the little girl thanks Dorothy for the meal with an absolutely contagious smile. Super hyped, the little one replies adorably while enjoying the loving head rubs from her caretaker. Bouncing with excitement, the little girl runs over to the window to peek out into the dark forest. Peering carefully through the wooden cracks, the kid tries to spot something in the cold night shadows. Suddenly, little Lizzie notices some weird movement getting closer and lets out a gasp of pure curiosity. Seeing a massive wolf's jaw pop up right at the window, the little girl goes into full panic mode and screams at the top of her lungs. Hearing the kid's terror, Dorothy whips around in absolute shock, spotting the beast's silhouette, terrifying the little one. Running on pure protective instinct, the young woman instantly grabs a sharp knife off the table to defend the kid. Sprinting to the window, weapon in hand, Dorothy screams for little Lizzie to get away from the danger right now. Heart pounding with terror, she gears up to fight the ferocious beast with everything she has got. But when she gets close, she finds Juin looking exhausted, carrying the lifeless massive wolf on his shoulders. Standing in the doorway with the knife, the young woman watches the panting guy drop the predator's body onto the grass. Still panicking, she screams her husband's name while he dumps the dead animal's weight on the ground. Looking confused at the two of them rushing out in a panic, Juin asks what happened to freak them out so badly. Realizing the wolf was already completely dead, young Dorothy freezes mid-step, totally speechless. Relieved that the danger is over, she lets the kitchen knife slip from her hands straight onto the wooden floor. Seeing Dorothy in shock, Juin gently touches her shoulder to let her know everything is chill. Little Lizzie grabs onto the guy's leg, shaking with fear and crying nonstop. Holding the young woman's arms to calm her down, he explains he just took a bite to the arm and it is nothing serious. Under the moonlight, the guy hugs his new family next to the defeated beast, promising he is totally fine. Suddenly, the young woman reacts by throwing her arms around his neck in a tight hug, catching him totally off guard. Feeling her relief as she leans on his shoulder, he figures from her words that she is just happy he is safe. Hugging our MC's strong arm, the little one also sheds tears of pure relief after that massive scare. Watching them both let out all that tension, he swears to himself he will never let his family go through anything like this again. The next morning, the sun lights up the isolated mountain cabin, bringing a much more relaxed feel. Outside, the guy sets up his cutting tools on the table to process the hunted animal. Putting in some serious elbow grease, he starts skinning and slicing the meat using the knife he managed to find. Wiping the sweat off his face, he thinks this job looked way easier when his grandpa used to do it back in the day. Looking at the cut pieces, the young guy admits it was a brutal chore and decides to find a cheat code for it next time. Proud of his hard work, Juin takes a deep breath, ready to finally wrap up all this messy business. Right then, Dorothy quietly pops up at the cabin door, calling his name in a super soft voice. Surprised to hear his own name, our MC quickly turns his head to see what the young woman needs. Walking toward him, she carries a small wooden bucket and calls her partner's name again. Setting the bucket down by the table, she points at the cuts of meat, hinting that is where he should store all that food. Not knowing the language, the guide tries to read her gestures, guessing she wants to help pack the food away safely. Scratching his chin, he racks his brain, trying to remember the exact word to say thank you in this weird world. Piecing it together, the young guy finally manages to mumble a clumsy thank you in the local tongue. Totally amazed that he tried, the young woman's cheeks turn pink, and her eyes literally sparkle with happiness. Seeing her sudden reaction, Juin gets nervous, thinking he might have accidentally said something stupid. But to his massive relief, she flashes a gorgeous smile and repeats the word back, confirming he nailed it. After that, she takes a confident step forward, closing the gap between them out there in the yard. Trading looks full of mutual understanding, the couple keeps thanking each other in a super light, cozy vibe. Returning the kindness smoothly, the guy wraps up the quick chat while she just listens closely. Looking back at the bucket, he feels a bit sad, realizing he never got a genuine thank you from his own family back in the day. Watching his wife help pack the meat, he realizes that simple gesture meant the absolute world to him. Feeling an immense sense of peace, our MC knows that all these first-time experiences with her are totally changing his life. Meanwhile, Dorothy holds a hand over her heart, feeling her face burn with embarrassment as she remembers what just happened. Walking back to the cabin, the young woman admits she is dying of cringe, but at the same time she is super curious. She tries to figure out if that sweet kiss on the lips was just a normal thing, or if the guy goes around doing that all the time. Completely confused by her own feelings, the girl's heart is pounding so hard she feels like crying for no reason. Right then, our MC walks into the cabin carrying the heavy bucket, snapping the young woman right out of her thoughts. Setting the food on the rustic table, he starts organizing everything, while she finds it super weird to see a guy helping with house chores. Splitting the meat into smaller bowls, the guy acts so casual about it that his helpful attitude leaves his wife totally intrigued. Suddenly, the young guy stops sorting and just stares deeply at the girl, making the vibe intensely awkward. Seeing him slowly step closer, she goes into full internal panic mode, thinking something crazy is about to go down. Having no clue how to handle this mystery approach, the girl just squeezes her eyes shut, bracing for the worst. Leaning his face toward hers, our MC gets even closer, until he is just inches away from the spooked young woman. Instead of doing anything wild, the guy just gently blows on her hair to knock off some dirt that got stuck there. Stepping back looking confused, he asks why she closed her eyes, making the girl mentally call herself an idiot for the mix-up. Getting back to the meat bucket, the young guy goes back to work, while she turns her head away, completely mortified by the whole thing. Grabbing her own hair out of pure cringe, she figures she must have looked like a total fool expecting another kiss. Then they end up face to face again in this super expectant vibe, with the young woman watching him super closely. Determined, she decides she is keeping her eyes wide open this time to avoid any more embarrassing misunderstandings. But our MC totally blindsides her and steals a quick sweet kiss right on the lips. Pulling back slowly, he looks at her affectionately, leaving the young woman even more flustered by the sudden move. Right after, he grabs the bucket and starts walking away, calling his wife's name when he notices she is just frozen there. Hiding behind the door, little Lizzie spies on the whole thing in shock, wondering if her mom saw that kiss too. But the girl just runs frantically into the cabin, dying of embarrassment, leaving the guy outside totally confused. Later on, Juin is taking a chill walk through the sunny forest, with the little girl tagging right along. They walk side by side on the green grass, while the young guy effortlessly carries the wooden bucket. Breaking the silence of their stroll, he looks down and thanks the little one in a super friendly way. Confused by the random comment, the girl just stares at him, making him realize he probably should have used her name. With that, our MC decides to thank the young mom directly for her help, using the name he picked out for her. Hearing her mom's name, the little girl flashes a massive smile of pure joy while holding onto the edge of the bucket. Back inside the cabin, the wife smooths out the dark fur of the giant wolf they spread on the wooden floor. Sitting nearby, the guy thinks it is weird that she is drying the pelt indoors, since the animal smells absolutely awful. But then it clicks, and he figures out the real reason behind her doing something so unusual. Watching them both admire the pelt, he realizes that material is an insanely valuable item for their family. Then Dorothy gently pulls the little girl back, so she does not end up sitting on top of that super precious item. But the little one refuses to let go of the soft fur and grabs it with both hands, totally obsessed. Seeing the kid's adorable stubbornness, the young mom lets out a sweet giggle, while our MC watches the whole thing feeling super chill. With a warm feeling in his chest, he is really happy to see his wife having fun with the situation. Time passes peacefully in the rustic mountain cabin during that calm late afternoon. Later, the young woman starts prepping the cuts of fresh meat, packing them all into big clay bowls. Watching the process super closely, the guy decides to memorize this storage hack so he can handle it next time. Plus, he is super relieved he saved the animal fat when he sees how happy she is with the new groceries. Thinking about his new routine, the young guy admits he still has a ton to learn and a lot of chores to take over. Staring at the pelt on the floor, he decides he needs to quickly figure out how trading and the local economy work around here. Determined to provide for the house, our MC jumps up ready to get back to the grind and ditch the downtime. The second he walks toward the exit, Dorothy jumps up startled, thinking he is about to vanish again. Stopping mid-step, the guy looks back, confused, thinking his wife wanted him to just stay seated. Worried, Dorothy says she is already fully recovered from the hike and doesn't feel any pain at all. Juin tells her not to stress, promising he is not going to push himself too hard. But the young woman just watches her husband walk away in total silence. Out in the woods, our MC scopes out the trees, trying to find the perfect size for some training. Looking at his reflection in the axe, he figures an oak would be solid, but admits he cannot ID trees to save his life and just relies on brute strength. Lifting the heavy axe with both hands, the guy gears up to land his first strike. He brings the tool down with absolute max power straight into the trunk. But the guy's ridiculous strength ends up completely obliterating the tree instead of just chopping it. Looking at the wreckage, our MC feels kinda awkward, realizing he totally overdid it. Meanwhile, it is still a sunny day over at the humble, isolated mountain cap. Juin pushes the wooden door open, hauling a basket packed with firewood on his back. As they come in, Dorothy and little Lizzie watch him arrive with total focus. The young woman rushes over to help her husband with the heavy load. Suddenly, she loses her balance and drops to her knees right in front of the guy. Worried, Juin grabs her hands, but Dorothy shyly insists she is totally fine. Looking into his eyes, she quietly thanks him for his care and dedication. Right then, little Lizzie sprints toward the back of the cabin like she is on a mission. She dunks her little hands into a basin of clean water to try and help the guy out. The little girl comes running back, holding a wet cloth, looking super hyped. Suddenly, the kid jumps right into our MC's arms and starts wiping the sweat off his face, surprising both of them. Totally awkward about the sweet gesture, Juin just freezes while getting his face cleaned. Watching this adorable scene, Dorothy cannot hide a look of absolute pure happiness. But when she is done, little Lizzie stares at the guy up close with intense curiosity. With a gentle move, Juin gives the little girl a head pat and thanks Dorothy for the welcome. Hyped by the attention, the girl runs laps around the house while Dorothy tells her to stop making a mess. Seeing the kids' crazy energy, the couple starts laughing together, feeling like this whole setup is an absolute dream. Our MC reflects that he never expected to have this much joy in his life and decides he will do whatever it takes to keep them smiling. Meanwhile, the rustic cabin's chimney puffs smoke, signaling that dinner is officially in the works. The slab of fresh wolf meat roasts, slowly letting off an absolutely incredible smell. Sitting around the wooden table, the three of them finally dig into a delicious meal together. Once they finish eating, Dorothy notices the heavy dinner totally knocked the little one out. Slumped sideways on the table, Lizzie passes out in the most adorable way possible. Seeing the cute scene, the couple shares a funny look over the situation. Super carefully, our MC leans over and scoops the sleeping girl into his arms. Carrying the kid like she weighs nothing, he waits for Dorothy to point out where her bed is. The two of them walk in silence through the quiet bedroom of their humble home. Laying her down gently under the covers, Juin makes sure the little one is super comfy. As the dark, freezing night completely swallows the forest around the cat, Dorothy starts washing the dinner dishes in a big basin of hot water. Sneaking up slowly from behind, our MC watches his wife wrap up her chores. Suddenly, he holds her hand gently to get her to stop working. Startled by the sudden touch, the young woman feels her face burn up and looks away, acting all shy. But the guy just stares at her calmly, looking like he has something important to say. Under the dim cabin light, the two stay close in a really cozy silence. Wrapping his wife in a protective hug, Juin tries to give her all the security she needs. Then our MC starts casually loosening his own clothes. Watching her husband, Dorothy thinks to herself that she shouldn't hesitate to do her wifely duties. With shaking hands, the young woman steps up and starts unbuttoning the guy's shirt. Surprised she actually made a move, Juin just silently watches his wife being super shy. The young guy cracks a soft smile, feeling the young woman's genuine care and dedication. But the cringe gets too real and she backs away fast, hiding her bright red face. The guy gently grabs her hand, stopping her from hiding from him. Pulling her back close, he gives her a warm look that completely melts away any of her fears. Whispering softly in her ear, Juin suggests they finally go get some sleep. Hand in hand, the couple walks over to the mattress laid out in the corner of the room. Lying side by side under the faint glow of the lantern, the silence of the night totally wraps around them. Rolling onto his side, our MC stares deeply into her eyes, showing her all his affection. With a gentle move, he gets even closer, closing the gap between them. Feeling her heart race, she just smiles back, completely surrendering to the moment. Then they pull each other into a warm, intimate hug, sealing the deal on their first night together. Feeling his wife's soft touch, Juin realizes he finally has a real home. He mentally swears he will do everything to protect Dorothy and Lizzie, hoping they never ever leave him. Remembering that crazy Santa, the guy silently begs for this happiness to last forever. In that medieval region, the life of regular peasants is way different from the daily grind of rich nobles. Without separate bedrooms or servants, families usually share the same humble space to sleep. Because of that, kids end up growing up super close, witnessing their parents' reality firsthand. But Dorothy bitterly remembers how the nights during her childhood were full of absolute terror and suffering. She remembers the violent screaming of her abusive dad that always terrified her in the dark, and her mom's quiet crying that echoed through the house until dawn after his fits of rage. All that past trauma made the young woman terrified her future would end up exactly like her mom's. Suddenly, Dorothy slowly opens her eyes, waking up from that painful childhood nightmare. The comforting sound of firewood crackling in the fireplace brings an instant feeling of peace to the room. Looking around, she is surprised to see she is lying comfortably in bed right next to Juin and Lizzie. She lovingly realizes the guy tucked her in and even let her use his arm as a pillow. Sweetly hugging little Lizzie, the young woman smiles, noticing her nights have finally become peaceful. Snuggled up in bed, Dorothy breathes a sigh of relief, realizing the nights beside her new husband are incredibly sweet. Leaning against his chest, the young woman feels like her entire world has been upgrading ever since she met him. Right then, our MC mumbles something as he starts waking up, giving the girl a massive jump scare. Still half asleep, he just pulls her in for a tighter hug, leaving her completely frozen. With her face pressed to the guy's chest, Dorothy feels her heart pounding so hard it feels like it might literally explode from emotion. Flashing a goofy smile, she admits her chest feels all fuzzy and wishes this perfect moment would never end. The next morning, sunlight floods the cabin bedroom as Juin finally wakes up from his sleep. Sitting up on the mattress, he pulls the blanket back and notices little Lizzie fell asleep, grabbing onto his waist. Finding it adorable, the guy gently pets the little girl's hair while she keeps snoring away peacefully. Right then, Dorothy walks into the room, hauling a metal bucket that looks crazy heavy. But before she can even strain herself, Juin snatches the bucket out of her hands in the blink of an eye. Holding the bucket effortlessly, he shoots his wife a sweet smile, while she stands there totally confused by his move. The guy dumps all the water straight into the massive pot hanging over the lit fireplace. Turning back to her, he drops some friendly words in the local language like it is the most natural thing ever. Totally caught off guard, the young woman just stares at him, unable to believe what she just heard. Juin asks if she slept well but immediately wonders why her face just turned bright red out of nowhere. Nodding her head, the girl confirms it while he wonders if it was because of what he called her. Then the guy realizes he must have used a word similar to honey or wife from their vocabulary. Pointing at himself, he asks for help on what he should actually call her and how he should refer to little Lizzie. Super embarrassed, she stutters and asks him to keep calling her honey, which makes the guy catch on instantly. Taking the cue, he loudly calls her honey, with total hype making the young woman's face burn up from pure shyness. Not knowing where to hide, Dorothy turns her back to him, trying to play off her morning awkwardness. Finding her reaction way too cute, our MC decides he wants to tease her just a tiny bit more to see what happens. Tapping the girl's shoulder lightly, he uses a soft voice to ask his honey to look at him again. Suddenly, little Lizzie wakes up spooked and sits bolt upright in bed with her eyes totally wide open. Still groggy, the little girl mumbles the word meat, completely lost in her own thoughts. But then she snaps totally awake, remembering the amazing meal they had at the table last night. Jumping up fast, the little one dashes past them, desperate to find yesterday's leftovers. Passing through like a literal hurricane, she totally ignores the couple as she runs frantically around the wooden cap. Peering into the bottom of the supply barrel, Lizzie's eyes light up with extreme joy when she spots the meat. Hanging off the edge, the girl screams happily for food, pulling genuine hearty laughs from the couple. Seeing how hyped the little one is, Juin finds the whole thing hilarious and scratches the back of his neck in a super chill vibe. The little girl even tries to climb into the wooden barrel because she wants to eat that juicy mix so badly. Laughing out loud, the guy promises himself he will grind hard hunting so they never run out of food on their plates. Later on, he is strolling through the forest thinking it would be awesome to bump into another wolf like before to secure dinner. Resting the heavy axe on his shoulder, the young guy fully trusts his new cutting tool to handle whatever comes his way. His heavy boots crush the tall grass as he pushes deeper into the increasingly thick woods. But our MC suddenly stops dead in his tracks when he feels a super weird vibe hanging in the air. Looking around suspiciously, he thinks this heavy atmosphere popping up out of nowhere is seriously off. Gripping the axe handle tight, Juin feels slightly suffocated, even though he is standing in an open, breezy forest. Keeping his guard up, he tries to guess what kind of monstrous beast is about to jump him this time. Quietly, mysterious, slow footsteps creep up right behind the guy without making almost any noise. Noticing the shady movement, our MC turns his head, a bit confused, fully expecting to see a wild animal. But instead of a monster, he comes face to face with a hooded person sneaking right toward him. Pulling down the hood in a quick move, the stranger reveals himself as an older guy with a super cryptic look. Scanning the mysterious old dude from head to toe, Juin has zero clue who this guy lost in the woods could be. Checking out the area, the old man closely observes the trail of destruction and the marks left on a massive boulder. Analyzing the tactical setup, he deduces from the huge claw marks that all this was caused by a giant beast. The old man thinks to himself that he watched the guy for days and saw that he does not even know how to swing an axe properly to chop wood. Puzzled by the paradox, he wonders how a giant dude with zero hunting experience managed to take down a creature like that. Shaking his head, the veteran hunter admits that even a pro would have serious trouble taking down that monster barehanded. With a sharp gaze, the old man decides he cannot let this bizarre situation slide without getting some clear answers. Focused on uncovering the hidden truth, he figures he needs to investigate the young lumberjack closer to be absolutely sure. Shadowing the guy from a distance on the trails, the old man keeps a constant and completely silent watch. Hiding in the shadows of the massive trees, he stares at our MC, trying to crack all of his big secrets. Staring closely at the guy's arm, the old man mentally examines the severe wound Juin took during the fight. Based on the bite mark, he confirms it is from a wolf, but thinks it is crazy suspicious that the wound is so clean since anyone else would have kicked the bucket from fever instantly. He concludes an injury like that would absolutely shred muscles and blood vessels, stopping the young guy from moving normally like he is doing now. Staring at our MC's back, the old man arrives at the only logical option and wonders in awe if the guy is actually a rare mage. Old memories of mages manipulating energy pop into the old man's head, backing up his wild theory. He reflects that magic users are insanely noble beings that regular commoners almost never get to see in their entire lives. Looking at Juin's confused face, the hunter thinks that if this massive dude really is a mage, everything is about to change. A dark smile creeps across the old man's face as he feels his big chance to turn the tables has finally arrived. Standing face to face on the trail, the old man mentally celebrates the shot at revenge he thought he would never get before passing away. Seeing the old guy smiling out of nowhere looking like a psycho, Juin crosses his arms, slightly annoyed, trying to figure out what the deal is with this dude. Then the man starts spilling that today he is just a washed-up old guy, but back in the day he was an ambitious young dude full of energy. He explains that becoming a noble's forest ranger meant you had to serve in the war, but it guaranteed an offer you could not refuse as the Lord's advisor. Chasing that dream of greatness, he ditched his own dad to work as a freelance hunter in a remote little village. Real quick, the skilled young guy managed to become the official lumberjack of that mountain, which was super rich in valuable resources. The only issue was actually finding firewood, since even the commoners could easily just walk into the Lord's forest and take everything. Because of that, he had to go way too deep into the mountains, thinking it would be an awesome chance to map out the dangerous terrain. Back then, his ego totally blinded him, and he did not realize why the locals only grabbed wood from the safe edges of the forest. Plus, the #1 rule for managing the Lord's forest was that you needed all 4 limbs intact when signing the contract. Collapsed on the dark forest floor, the young hunter panted in absolute terror after failing that exact condition and getting instantly disqualified from his life's work. Shaking with pure fear after hearing a terrifying growl echo in the dark, he admits he never expected to run into a threat that massive. All of the old hunter's misery started with the horrific monsters that infested the mountain region back in the day. At the time, he hid while severely injured, listening to the growls of those creatures echoing through the darkness. The absolute nightmare was that the beasts used to kidnap human women from the area to force them to birth their pups. Because of that constant tragedy, the tiny village, which already had very few women, ended up losing almost all of them. As a result, the area around that cursed mountain became known to everyone as the dreaded village of the creatures. Completely ruined after losing everything, the hunter endured a miserable life, focused entirely on getting payback against the monsters. Even holding a massive grudge against the cowardly villagers, he lived among them for decades, waiting for his chance to strike back. The only thought keeping him alive was the burning desire to reduce those beasts' lair to absolute ashes forever. Back in the present, the old man looks at Juin with hope, realizing he has the power needed to pull this plan off. After all, the guy has a colossal build and brute strength that easily tops any giant in the region. On top of that, the hunter was blown away by the insane regen ability that healed the young guy's wounds so fast. Facing this terrifying potential, the old man is absolutely sure our MC can become the greatest hunter of all time. Knowing the monsters are hiding deep down, he warns that the beasts will attack the village the second they run out of women. To prevent the worst, the old man promises to turn the big guy into a top-tier pro before that terrible day arrives. With that, the hunter decides to keep the beast's nest a secret until they lock in a solid deal, making sure the guy does not chicken out. To show some respect, Juin agrees to the deal and gives a polite bow in his own language. During the bow, the old man notices the guy shifts his center of gravity back to keep his guard up even while bending over. With the alliance locked in, the old man announces he will start passing down all his survival knowledge starting today. He guarantees the young guy will become a brilliant hunter, but the guy just stares at him in silence, trying to process it all. Bright and early the next morning, the big guy walks into the kitchen feeling like he barely even shut his eyes to sleep. Glancing over his shoulder, he notices the old man waiting outside the house near the firewood pile. Outside, the hunter steps away from the door and watches the house, knowing the guy prefers to keep things private. Being super protective, Juin doesn't want to make a habit of letting strangers into the place where Dorothy and little Lizzie live. While walking through the yard, the old man takes one last look at the house before heading into the forest. Then the old guy flashes a sly smirk, hiding his true intentions behind that nice guy mask. After coming home from the exhausting grind, our MC walks in relieved and remembers the fake expression of his old boss back on Earth. The second he drops his gear, he focuses on grinding hard and soaking up the lessons to provide for his new home. With food cooking on the fire, Dorothy tidies things up while her husband quickly mentions he will be back soon. After slightly burning herself and blowing on her fingers, the young wife tries to pack a lunchbox in a super clumsy way. Amazed by her dedication, the guy scratches his face, feeling his heart completely melt from the cuteness. Right in the middle of the path, the blonde little girl watches the whole thing alongside her mom, who is holding the hot food. Wasting no time, little Lizzie runs excitedly toward the guy with her arms wide open. Caught off guard, Juin looks back as Dorothy walks up right behind her daughter with the packed lunchbox. Super gently, the young woman hands over the packed food to try and treat her husband before his heavy training. While adjusting the gear on his shoulders, the guy pays attention to her hand gestures, asking him to eat properly. Deeply touched by how much they care, our MC feels incredibly peaceful, finally having a loving family by his side. Standing at the door, Dorothy says some sweet words in the local language, wishing him a safe trip. Trying to pick up the language, Juan repeats the phrase hesitantly to make sure he got the meaning right. Finding her husband's attempt cute, the girl nods yes, while he promises he won't take long. Then little Lizzie adorably tugs at the guy's pants, demanding a little attention before he heads out. Full of joy, the little girl copies her mom and also wishes the big guy a good trip. He gives them a wave and says his goodbyes, promising he will be back to the safety of their home soon. Walking down the trail with the old man, our MC mentally admits he absolutely hates having to leave them. Looking back out of the corner of his eye, the guy tries to burn that cozy image into his memory. The amazing sight of his happy wife and daughter makes the young guy realize those two are way too precious. While hiking through the thick forest, Juan wonders exhaustedly how long they have been walking non-stop. Super suspicious, the guy tries to figure out what massive lesson could possibly justify a trip this long and tiring. Suddenly, the veteran hunter stomps hard on the dirt ground, kicking up some dust to get his attention. To make sure the big guy is paying attention, the old man stops walking and shifts his body slightly. Startled by the sudden move, the young guy's eyes go wide as he realizes the real lesson is about to kick off. In the middle of the brush, the master points straight at his own foot and says something in the local language to the rookie. Staring at the ground, our MC notices the deep marks the old man's boots left stamped in the damp dirt. Intrigued by the tracks, he realizes the pattern of those footprints is completely different from a normal walk. Right then, the guy wonders if this type of footwork is some famous martial arts technique from the stories. Determined to master this mystery skill, he steps right behind the old man, copying every single movement with perfect precision. Hyper-focused on the practical drill, Juan lifts his leg, matching the exact weight and rhythm of the instructor's walk. Trailing right behind in the tree shadows, the try-hard student keeps his posture solid so he does not mess up a single step. Catching it out of the corner of his eye, the veteran hunter shows some approval, seeing how fast the guy adapts. Going deeper into the training, the old guy starts dumping all his knowledge about surviving in that brutal environment. Touching the tree trunks around them, the master teaches that every single mountain has its own unique type of vegetation. Squatting on the dirt path, the old man makes the guy trace the shape of the land with his hands, so he memorizes the local terrain. Taking a quick breather on the rocky slope, Juan sits down exhausted, while the instructor watches the perimeter standing up. Taking slow steps, the old man quietly packs his gear away to chill in the cool shade. Right after, he sits down on the rocks next to the guy to catch his breath after the massive hike. Letting out a long sigh of relief, our MC relaxes his shoulders, finally getting a well-deserved break. Hyped for the downtime, he grabs the wrapped lunchbox, remembering how sweetly Dorothy and Lizzie prepped it. Full of anticipation, the big guy opens the small wooden box, ready to absolutely devour the home-cooked meal. Smelling the amazing aroma hit the air, the young guy's mouth starts watering as he admires his wife's cooking skills. Aware of the immediate danger, the old man whips his head around and tells the rookie to put the food away right this second. Waving his hands no, the master shuts it down while the guy immediately realizes his own mistake. After all, the smell of cooked food would travel crazy fast on the wind, drawing in every single predator on the mountain. Frustrated by this tactical realization, Juan figures this will be the first and last time he ever gets a packed lunch. Super bummed out about the situation, he is practically on the verge of tears, while the hunter gives his shoulder a comforting pat. A little while later, the two of them roll up to a rustic wooden structure that serves as the master's secret hideout. Showing off his weapon like a boss, the old man holds a long piece of gear that catches the young guy's eye because of its weird shape. Holding two wooden weapons, our MC notices that the only bows he knows about have that classic curved shape. But looking at the hunter's gear, he wonders how anyone could actually shoot with something so straight and thick. Speaking in the local language, the master hands the weapon over to the guy and orders him to follow. While walking through the woods, Juan still doubts if it is physically possible to use that clunky gear. Stopping in a clearing, the old man explains that pulling a string that heavy takes some insanely abnormal strength. To show off the proper technique, the veteran hunter gets into a shooting stance and pulls the string back solid. He keeps his aim perfectly steady, showing that the shooter needs absolute max focus right before firing. With that, the arrow is launched at high speed, tearing through the forest. The projectile slams into a thick tree trunk with a totally mind-blowing impact. Checking out the damage, the big guy is amazed, finally realizing the true potential of that weapon. Hyped by the demo, the guy gets into stance and pulls back the thick string of his own bow. Right then, the old man steps up and starts adjusting the rookie student's arm positioning. Pushing against the guy's body, the master is shocked that he literally cannot move the guy's muscles a single millimeter. Completely locked on the target, Juan channels all his energy to pull off the perfect shot. While aiming, he reflects that these lessons and stances are exactly what he needs to master to become a real hunter. Firing the arrow, the young guy realizes he needs to grind non-stop so he can handle the mountain's dangers all by himself. Our MC's gaze is dripping with determination and the drive to be a man capable of providing for his new family. Far away from there, the rustic cabin stays totally chill under the bright afternoon sun. Inside, little Lizzie is playing on the bed, humming a song about the colors of everything around her. Sitting on the mattress, the little girl rubs her full tummy and happily mentions she ate so much meat it feels like the food is growing inside her. A sweet innocent laugh escapes the girl's lips as she rolls around from side to side. Watching the scene, Dorothy's heart fills with joy noticing her daughter has not stopped smiling since the big guy showed up. Folding the fresh laundry, the young mom admits the sound of that laugh warms her heart way more than the fireplace ever could. Chilling on the bed, the little girl crosses her fingers. Her stomach empties out soon, so she can devour even more meat. But then the girl gets all thoughtful and wonders what Juan's actual relationship with her is. With a worried little face, Lizzie remembers the guy is not her blood dad and is terrified of getting abandoned again in the future. Insecurity totally takes over the kid, imagining the new husband might just take her mom away someday. Almost crying, the little one wonders what would happen to her if she ended up left completely behind all alone. Suddenly, the little girl rolls over in bed and gets a mini jump scare when she looks to the side. She realizes in total confusion that Dorothy has literally just vanished from the room they were in. The disappearance brings back awful memories of the past, where a cruel voice used to call her a useless brat. The ghost of her old abuser pops into her head, repeating that she was just a waste of food because she wasn't born a boy. Gulping hard, the kid gets overwhelmed by a silent terror of losing the only good life she has ever known. Running on pure survival instinct, the little one sprints over to the wooden barrel. Seeing the supplies are still untouched, she breathes a sigh of relief, but goes right back to wondering where her mom went. Walking nervously through the empty cabin, Lizzie hears a harsh shout from the yard accusing someone of hiding stuff. The little girl holds her breath, instantly recognizing that aggressive tone of voice. Taking super tiny steps, she creeps up to the cracked door to spy on what is going down outside. Through the gap, the little one spots a group of guys aggressively intimidating Dorothy. Shaking with fear, Lizzie remembers those are the exact same cruel debt collectors who used to torment their family and cause the worst fights back at her old house. Hiding behind a pile of rocks, the girl cries silently, terrified the young woman is about to suffer the same awful abuse as before. Out in the yard, the group's leader accuses the young woman of stealing, demanding to know where that delicious smell of roast meat is coming from. Backing up scared, the girl tries to explain her new husband hunted the food, but the guy just laughs in her face at that lame excuse. The dude steps up looking dangerous, throwing it in her face that the village saved her from poverty, and she is paying them back with treason. Even with the young woman firmly denying the theft, the leader announces he is going to search the entire cabin to find the allegedly stolen goods. Having zero patience for excuses, the invader violently shoves the girl straight into the dirt. Totally ignoring her protests, the group kicks the wooden door in and breaks into the humble home. The second they step inside, one of the guys points in shock at the massive beast pelt spread out in the back of the room. The leader touches the valuable material, greedily hyping up the massive fortune they just stumbled. Thirsty for more loot, the guy orders his goons to search every single inch of that house. Curled up in the dark, little Lizzie panics, hearing the thugs searching for the freshly cooked meat. The gang boss thinks angrily about how the village leaders hid the fact that the new husband was such an op hunter. Ignoring her own pain, Dorothy runs into the cabin to try and stop them from looting her family's stuff. Throwing her arms wide in front of the pelt, the young mom uses her own body as a shield to protect their most valuable possession. With a furious glare, she screams at the top of her lungs that the item belongs strictly to her new family. The leader stares at the woman's rebellious attitude with a super cynical mocking smirk. Annoyed by her nerve, the guy strikes her violently, mocking that having a new husband suddenly made her act so tough. The cowardly hit sends the young woman flying hard against the wooden floor of the rustic cabin. Collapsed on the cold floor, Dorothy lets out a groan of agony, feeling the impact of that brutal hit. Hiding in the shadows, the little girl watches her mom fall, completely unable to react to such insane cowardice. Refusing to give up, the young woman tries to push herself off the floor to stand up, even though she is in massive pain. She shoots a teary glare at the invaders, showing a level of resistance she definitely did not have before. In her hiding spot, little Lizzie brutally blames herself for always pretending she didn't see these awful situations happening. Realizing her passive attitude was turning her into a useless kid, the girl struggles internally, trying to figure out what she needs to do to help. The leader mocks the woman's pained face, but then wonders if there would be blowback if the mountain's new guardian found out about the robbery. Weighing the risks, the thug figures the big guy doesn't even speak their language, so as long as they keep it quiet, they are home free. Deciding not to leave any loose ends, the guy orders his goons to drag the hunter's wife out into the middle of the forest. While his buddies grab the valuable loot, the boss roughly grabs the young woman by the arms. Fighting against his grip, Dorothy hears the terrifying threat that they will burn the cabin to the ground if she snitches to her husband. Dragging the girl outside, the invader celebrates his own luck for scoring such an easy payday in this isolated spot. As soon as the door shuts, the little one steps out of her hiding spot, completely shell-shocked by the kidnapping. Running wildly around the empty room, the little girl goes into a full-blown panic, terrified her mom is never coming back home. The light peeking through the cracked door highlights the kid's absolute despair over this family tragedy. Not knowing how to fight back against the thugs, the girl breaks down into loud, agonizing sobs of pure helplessness. With tears streaming down her face, Lizzie desperately screams our MC's name, begging her new dad to show up and save them. Watching through the cracks in the cabin, the little girl cries hysterically, seeing her mom being dragged far away by the invaders. Meanwhile, Juwon and the old master are hiking back through the forest after an exhaustingly heavy day of training. Suddenly, the big guy stops in his tracks and looks to the side, grabbing the veteran hunter's attention. Showing major respect, the guy gives a bow, thanking the old man for everything he learned today. But a super loud cry echoes through the woods, putting our MC on high alert because he recognizes that desperate sound. Looking toward the cabin, he quickly realizes Dorothy would never cry like that unless something was seriously wrong. Spooked by the vibe, the guy sprints off at top speed, wondering what the heck just went down at his house. Running between the trees, he prays nothing bad happened to his new family. Busting into a clearing, the guy catches the thugs harassing his wife right on the trip. Consumed by uncontrollable rage, our MC vows to absolutely finish off whoever is messing with her. With that, he charges in like lightning, catching the invaders totally off guard before they even realize what is happening. Showing zero mercy, Juwon lands a devastating punch straight to the face of the thug holding the young. The brutal impact sends the guy flying, leaving the rest of the gang completely shook by the sheer power of the hit. Seeing her husband there to save her, Dorothy breathes a sigh of relief and calls his name with tears in her eyes. Keeping his menacing stance, the big guy steps toward the other goons, who start backing up in pure terror. The gang leader goes into absolute panic mode, shaking with fear at the monstrous strength of this dude. Taking advantage of the opening, our MC delivers an insanely violent kick to another. Unable to even block it, the guy crumbles to the ground in massive pain from the crushing blow. Right then, one of the thugs tries to sneak attack the guy from behind, thinking he had some kind of advantage. But the big guy spots him coming and snatches the dude out of midair with terrifying ease. Using all his brute strength, Juwon slams the attacker headfirst straight into the dirt. The violent impact completely knocks the fight out of the thug, who is helpless against that level of power. Leaning over the defeated guy, the young man keeps attacking because he knows he cannot just back down now. He figures the nature of these people is absolute trash, and they will just come back to attack if he shows a single ounce of weakness. Wrapped in a dark aura, Juwon decides he needs to burn pure terror into their brains so they never ever come back. Sprawled on the ground, the goons stare up at our MC like they are looking at a literal monster. Suddenly, Dorothy's desperate voice rings out across the clearing, snapping her husband's attention back. She screams for him to watch out because one of the thugs got up and is trying to attack him with a sickle. Without even breaking a sweat, the young guy turns lightning fast and catches the attacker's wrist midair, blocking the fatal strike. With one simple move, he twists the guy's arm, making him scream in absolute agony out in the woods. Taken over by rage, the big guy flashes a savage look, ready to finish the attacker off for good. But the old hunter steps into the chaos, grabbing his student's shoulder and ordering him to stop right this second. Even while growling with hate, the guy listens to his master, asking him to chill so he does not make things way worse. Pointing a finger, the old man tells him to look back and see how terrified his young wife is by all this. Curled up on the grass, Dorothy watches the scene, completely traumatized, shaking from all the brutality. Far from there, little Lizzie is still crying alone in the cabin, totally freaked out by the tragedy she just witnessed. Noticing the fear in his wife's eyes, our MC freezes on the spot and drops the thug. Just like that, the dark, menacing aura wrapped around the guy's body fades away into the... Looking at her husband, the young woman admits to herself that he seemed gentle before, but now he just showed a seriously scary side. She admits that for a split second, his violence reminded her of her cruel late husband. Pure terror gripped her heart, thinking she was going to end up getting abused exactly like that in the future. But the second she looked at Juwon's face, all that fear vanished because there was zero malice aimed at her. Staring right at him, she realizes his eyes were just projecting a desperate need to protect her. Looking at her with tenderness, the guy seems super worried, thinking the young woman is scared of him. Taking a step forward, he mutters something about little Lizzie, making Dorothy wonder why he cares so much. Trying to calm down, the young woman squeezes her hands, feeling her whole body, reacting to the intense stress of the moment. Seeing that she is still shaking non-stop, she totally understands why he thinks she is terrified. Faced with the guy's sad expression, she silently begs him not to look so hurt. The young woman hates that she cannot just use words to tell him she isn't scared because of the language barrier. Determined to chill him out, she takes a deep breath and decides to take action to prove she completely trusts him. Calling her husband's name out loud, the girl gets his attention in a really sweet way. Right after, she walks quickly toward the big guy, closing the gap between them. Without hesitating for a second, Dorothy grabs the guy's rough hands with total firmness and affection. The moment she feels the warmth of his hands, the young woman becomes absolutely sure of her own feelings. Flashing a shy smile, she realizes she is completely safe by his side and that no one can ever hurt her again. Squeezing his fingers against hers, she tries to pass on all the gratitude she is holding in her chest. With tears of relief rolling down her face, the young woman smiles beautifully and thanks him for saving her life. Totally blindsided by his wife's sweet gesture, our MC is left speechless by the scene. Leaning her face against his hand, she whispers their daughter's name, signaling that they need to hurry back home. Overcome by a massive wave of emotion, the guy pulls the young woman into a tight protective hug in the middle of the forest. Rubbing his wife's back gently, the guy wonders why she is so incredibly grateful to him. Holding her in his arms, Juan feels like he is the one who should be thanking her for giving him such an amazing family. Suddenly, the young woman's eyes go wide when she hears a noise coming from the direction of the house. Crying her eyes out, little Lizzie pops up at the cabin window, frantically looking for her mom. The little girl screams our MC's name and points at them, grabbing the couple's attention instantly. Wasting zero time, the two of them sprint at top speed back to the house's yard. Ripping the door open, the guy asks worriedly if the little girl is okay and safe in there. Walking in right behind him, Dorothy gasps when she sees the state her daughter is in at the back of the room. Little Lizzie is standing on top of a crate, shaking from head to toe with absolute terror. The young mom thinks about how even though her husband saved them, witnessing all that brute violence was genuinely terrifying. Bitter memories of women suffering abuse in the past flood the girl's mind, bringing all her fears right back to the surface. The little girl tries to hold back her tears, remembering those cruel times when crying meant getting severely punished. Breaking down in tears, the little one cries and apologizes, thinking the whole home invasion was her fault. Heartbroken, Dorothy runs to hug her daughter, asking why on earth she is saying such nonsense. Looking at her husband, the girl decides she needs to calm the kid down immediately, so this trauma does not destroy their new family. Leaning in close to her daughter, Dorothy listens to the little one apologize for hiding and beg not to be left all alone. The young mom explains she only had to pretend she did not know her earlier because she was terrified those bad men would find her. Hugging the girl super affectionately, Dorothy promises she has absolutely zero reason to feel guilty about any of it. To ease the kid's heart, the young woman assures her everything is going to be fine now since Daddy is there to protect them. But the little one gets super confused by that out-of-nowhere statement, sadly remembering her real dad already passed away. Flashing a gentle smile, Dorothy asks if the little girl seriously doesn't know who Juan is. The young woman sweetly clears things up, explaining that the big guy is actually her brand new husband. With that, she breaks down the logic, explaining that this automatically makes him little Lizzie's new dad. Hesitating, the girl asks if Dorothy is really her stepmom to double-check. Putting the puzzle pieces together in her head, the little girl's eyes go wide when she realizes she just scored a new dad totally out of the blue. Amazed, Lizzie stares at the guy's towering silhouette outside while whispering "Daddy." Still kind of in disbelief about the news, the girl asks again if that giant really is her dad. Giving her daughter a sweet head pat, Dorothy explains that Juan is completely different from her old dad because he only wants to protect them. The young woman emphasizes that he only fought off those brutal invaders because she literally asked for his help. Figuring it all out, little Lizzie sprints past her mom, completely hyped up with a bright sparkle in her eyes. Running toward the door, the girl marvels at the fact that she got a giant, super strong dad who actually takes care of them. The little one hops down the steps, feeling like she finally has someone awesome to guarantee their safety in the woods. Happy memories flood the kid's mind, reminding her that he never hits them and always gives them huge hugs at night. Plus, she remembers the guy is always smiling, brings home a ton of meat, and even gave her mom a beautiful name. With her eyes shining with joy, Lizzie is absolutely convinced that this new dad is an amazing person. Screaming for him at the top of her lungs, the little girl grabs Juan's attention, making him turn his head, looking super surprised. Keeping the momentum going, the girl keeps sprinting full speed with a massive smile straight at the big guy. Catching the little one with open arms, the guy calmly gets ready for the sweet moment. Lizzie throws herself right into our MC's arms, feeling an incredible wave of relief being totally safe there. Hugging the kid, the young guy reflects that he does not understand their language, but he can perfectly feel the love behind the words. While holding the girl tight, Juan notices something weird and gets a slightly confused look on his face. Sniffing the air near the little girl, the guy catches a very unexpected smell coming from her clothes. Taking a closer look, he quickly realizes the little one ended up peeing her pants from all that sheer terror earlier. Seeing the girl's innocent glowing smile, he kind of feels bad for even focusing on that minor embarrassing detail. Worried about her health, our MC decides he needs to swap those wet clothes out fast so she doesn't catch a cold. Coming up right behind him, Dorothy hugs her husband's back with overwhelming gratitude for saving their family. From her dad's arms, little Lizzie peeks over his shoulder and spots something super important on the ground. Pointing excitedly at the yard, the little girl screams with hype when she sees the big bucket full of fresh meat. Totally ignoring the unconscious invaders on the grass, the girl bolts toward the food while her mom tries to call her back. Taking quick short steps, the little one hurries to make sure the family's delicious meal is safe and sound. Once she reaches the wooden barrel, she spots the juicy cuts of meat chilling inside. Using all her might, the kid tries to lift the heavy bucket that is basically the same size as she is. Pulling with all her energy, Lizzie drags the wooden container, refusing to let go of it no matter what. Seeing this, Dorothy and Juan run after the girl, totally mind-blown by her crazy dedication. Never giving up, the little girl keeps dragging the heavy meat with a level of determination that would impress anyone. Watching his daughter's sheer willpower, our MC thinks it is insane how her obsession with food borders on terrifying. Right behind them, the young mom lets out a tired sigh mixed with relief, realizing the worst is finally over. Stepping up slowly, the big guy grabs the bucket handles to help the little one deal with all that weight. With zero effort, he lifts the container along with the little girl dangling from it, pulling an amazed squeal out of her. Staring into the girl's sparkling eyes locked on the meal, the guy mentally jokes that becoming a hero in this house is way too easy. Pointing at the cabin, Dorothy tells her daughter to take the food bucket straight to the kitchen right now. Then the young woman asks her husband to go inside too, saying the yard is still a really dangerous place for them. Listening to her careful request, Juan carries the girl and the groceries back to the safety of the house. After dropping the two of them off safely inside, the guy lets out a heavy sigh, ready to settle the rest of the problem outside. Walking back across the lawn, our MC walks up to the invaders who are still knocked out cold on the ground. The guy's gaze turns pitch black, giving off a highly threatening aura, ready to get payback on those cowards. Suddenly, the old hunter pops up out of nowhere wearing a hood and blocks the young guy's path, instantly grabbing his attention. Shaking his head, the master warns him he absolutely should not finish those guys off, or he will just make his own situation way worse. The old man explains the guy could get locked up or thrown back into slavery, making Juan back off even though he hates the idea. Glancing at the lit cabin, our MC reflects that he cannot risk his freedom, because he is definitely not alone in this world anymore. Staring at the defeated thugs with pure disgust, the big guy coldly announces he will remember every single one of their faces forever. Then the old master points at all the gear the invaders dropped during the brawl in the yard. Checking out a box packed with useful tools, the guy decides he should confiscate that stash to help his family survive. Pushing the wooden door open slowly, he finally steps back inside the cabin, where his wife is waiting with the little one in her arms. Hauling the confiscated box, our MC walks in, absolutely sure that they finally have the gear they need to survive the winter. Dropping to one knee on the living room floor, the guy opens the heavy box right next to the valuable wolf pelt he hunted earlier today. Gripping a solid hammer, Juan remembers his own tragic past and decides that losing a family once was way more pain than enough for one lifetime. Flashing a calm, super confident smile, he feels the weight of the tool, fully accepting the responsibility of being the rock of this house. Turning a look full of pure tenderness toward Dorothy and Lizzie, the big guy promises himself that no matter what goes down, he will protect them with his own life. Taking care of his bruised wife, Juan gently touches her face, wishing he could master that magic to instantly heal her bruise. To chill him out, Dorothy holds her husband's hand, sweetly telling him she is actually feeling totally fine already. Relieved by how sweet she is, our MC watches her with deep affection, while the vibe in the room lightens up. Suddenly, the big guy moves fast and effortlessly scoops the young woman off the floor, catching her completely off guard. Carrying the girl in his arms, he protectively explains that the cabin floor is way too freezing for her to be walking around barefoot. Right then, the guy's eyes go wide when he spots something completely unexpected on his wife's face. Touching her own cheek, Dorothy is amazed to realize the dark bruise mark has literally vanished into thin. Confused by the miracle, Juan tries to figure out if that bizarre magic training he did earlier actually worked. With that, a massive wave of relief and hype washes over our MC as he realizes what just went down. Super excited, he celebrates, discovering that he can finally use healing magic, leaving the young woman kind of confused. Meanwhile, in the village far away, the local leader is yelling angrily, asking if some idiot totally lost their mind. Right then, his wife kicks a chicken in the yard, complaining that her husband always has to stick his nose into everything without respecting his own family. Tired of the nagging, the elder asks why simply giving a piece of fabric to the mountain guardian bothers her so much. Furious, the lady snaps back that there was absolutely zero need to hand over the expensive material she worked so hard to save for 10 long years. Defending his move, the guy explains that the dude looked insanely dangerous, and they could not risk losing more workers and tanking the year's harvest. Calling his wife a fool, the leader claims she cannot see the massive opportunity, while she fires back asking why he gave the fabric away so easily. Remembering the encounter, the man drops the fact that the severe bite wounds on the guy's body were healing at a ridiculously fast rate. Confirming his suspicions, the village chief figures out that old Gus was telling the absolute truth about the mountain guardian being a super rare healing May. With his brain working overtime, he realizes he has to play it safe, because even the top nobles would pay big money for a power like that. Daydreaming about living a lavish life in the capital, the guy figures he could sell the young man's services for a literal fortune. Flashing a greedy look, the elder plans to use this discovery to quit being a basic village chief and start living like an absolute king. Analyzing the setup, he notes that the locals are way too clueless to realize there is a healer mage hiding right under their noses. But the leader's biggest fear is that the rumors will leak, and some guild will end up snatching the guy away before he can cash in. Knowing old Gus is the only one keeping tabs on the big guy, he decides to hunt down a loaded noble to lock in a profitable deal ASAP. Switching up tactics, the guy tells his wife to go make friends with Dorothy, warning her that the new hunter is super smart and catches on fast. He warns that any slip-up could tip Juan off to the fact that the village has been stealing the local lord's goods. Hoping to leverage the guy's affection for his wife, the dude suggests this fake friendship could score them valuable pelts for dirt cheap later on. Agreeing to the shady plan, the lady fixes her hair and claims that women can always find stuff to do together. Planning to get on the young woman's good side, she decides the best first step is to hand back some of the stuff they looted from the cabin earlier. Sealing the deal, the leader acknowledges our MC is dangerous and way different from the other prisoners, demanding they move fast to avoid a total disaster. To wipe the slate clean of their old thefts, the stolen evidence gets tossed straight into the blazing furnace fire. Watching the fire burn it all to a crisp, the village leader hates the waste, but accepts it as the only safe play. With a dark look reflecting the flames, he figures you gotta sacrifice a little meat if you want to chew on the most valuable bones. A few days pass peacefully on the mountain, and the family's routine seems to have finally settled down in the rustic cabin. Walking casually through the yard, Juan whistles a happy tune, noticing little Lizzie has totally bounced back and is full of energy again. Inside, he watches his wife organizing the supplies the village chief sent over that morning to try and clear his own name. Amazed by Dorothy's glowing face, the guy wonders how just getting some basic ingredients back can make her this happy even more than the healing miracle. Seeing the family's contagious joy, the big guy realizes with a warm heart that true happiness is literally found in these little things. Overflowing with affection, he admits to himself that this exact simplicity is why he loves her and is so proud to call her his wife. Geared up for work, our MC announces he is heading out to hunt, while the young woman adorably asks if he really has to leave already. In a super intimate move, Juan playfully taps the tip of her nose, saying goodbye in a really cozy vibe. Standing at the cabin door, Dorothy waves, wishing her husband to be super careful during his trek in the woods. Walking away from the house, the guy strolls across the lawn, remembering that old Gus mentioned today was the big rabbit hunt. Walking past the chopped firewood, he gets curious if the traps will actually manage to catch any small prey. Thinking about the family, the hunter crosses his fingers he'll bring back a chubby rabbit, since his wife is always asking for more meat for their meals. Gripping his axe tight, Juan starts doubting if he actually has the guts to finish off a harmless little critter. Shaking his head to snap out of it, the guy realizes he has to drop his modern mindset if he wants to survive as a legit hunter. But every single time he pictures a fluffy white bunny, the adorable image of his own wife pops straight into his head. Covering his face in pure frustration, the big guy admits that the cute similarity between the two totally blocks him from doing something that cruel. Hiking through the thick woods, he mentally prays that whatever prey crosses his path turns out to be the ugliest thing on the planet. Answering his weird request, a monstrous red-eyed creature bursts out of the dark bushes, growling aggressively. After finishing up his heavy chores in the cabin yard, the young guy wipes the sweat off his forehead, feeling the day's exhaustion kick in. Looking at the firewood pile, he realizes he actually has a bunch of free time left after fetching water and chopping all that wood. Stretching his arms, Juan decides to use his downtime to try and practice those magic skills again. Staring at his own hands, he is bummed that even though healing comes so easy, he cannot even spark a tiny flame. Remembering the brutal fight against the wolf, the young guy tries to figure out what triggered that destructive power back then. Without any solid clues, he figures that overwhelming energy only showed up because his life was literally on the line in that moment. Taking a deep breath to focus, our MC decides to concentrate on circulating energy through his core while staying super calm. In a dramatic move, the guy throws his hand forward and yells out the name of a powerful spell, waiting for a massive fire explosion. When absolutely nothing happens, he drops his guard, frustrated, thinking Dorothy would be blown away if he could just create fire out of nowhere. Looking back at her reactions, Juin figures his wife doesn't get hyped about his healing, because it is an invisible spell with zero cool sound effects. Letting out a massive sigh, the big guy is bummed he failed, because he really wanted to impress the girl with an awesome visual trick. Suddenly, tiny glowing sparks start crackling right at his fingertips, catching him completely off guard. Hyped by the unexpected win, the guy admires the tiny flame that popped up in his hand, even if it is just the size of a lighter. Hearing the noise outside, little Lizzie sneaks the cabin door open to peek at what is going down in the yard. The second she spots our MC's hand, the little girl's eyes go wide, absolutely fascinated by the magic. Doing happy little jumps, the girl screams in excitement that her dad actually made real fire. Worried about safety, the guy pulls his hand back, telling her to be careful not to get burned, while the little one yells that she is running to get her mom. Mesmerized by the warm glow, Lizzie stares closely at the flame, letting out a gasp of pure awe. Alerted by her daughter's yelling, Dorothy rushes out of the house to see what kind of mess is happening outside. Covering her mouth in total shock, the young mom freezes when she sees her own husband holding a living flame. Feeling the pressure from his cute audience, Juin flexes hard, trying to make the fire bigger for them, but admits it is actually super difficult. Satisfied with the decent result, he is grateful he mastered both skills and plans to use this little spark to light campfires from now on. But the young woman suddenly turns her back and speed walks away, leaving the guy confused if the show was already over. Slamming the door in a hurry, Dorothy hides back inside the cabin, leaving Juin and the little girl planted on the lawn, having zero clue what just happened. Completely lost, Juin just stands in the yard holding the flame, bummed out that he tried so hard to pull that off. Then he frantically shakes his hand, trying to figure out how to put this mystery fire out. But the flame stays burning strong, making the guy give up and accept he just has to live with it until it burns out on its own. Suddenly, the fire just vanishes with a pop, catching the big guy completely by surprise. Looking at his own hand, he concludes the magic in this world is super weird, considering he has no idea how it even works. Back inside the cabin, our MC sneaks in and quietly shuts the wooden door behind him. Calling out for his wife, he spots little Lizzie standing right near the supply barrel. With a sad little face, the girl points at the food and complains that the piece of meat looks way too small. Seeing Dorothy staying quiet in the corner, the guy figures she is also bummed because their food stash is shrinking. Determined to hype his family back up, he flashes a confident smile and promises he will bring home some super fresh rabbit meat today. But a shout from the yard ruins the moment, taking the big guy totally by surprise. It is the old hunter announcing it is time to go, making the young guy acknowledge his master is here. Wasting no time, Juin grabs his gear and tells the family he is heading out for training. Super hyped, little Lizzie waves, wishing her dad a super safe trip. Getting a sweet head pat, the little girl smiles goofily when she hears her dad call her a good girl. The young wife also tells him to be careful, while the big guy tells little Lizzie to behave. In a move packed with affection, the guy leans in and gives Dorothy a sweet kiss on the forehead before taking off. Seeing the love, the little girl throws an adorable pout, demanding her own goodbye kiss too. Laughing at the whole thing, he drops to the little one's level to grant his daughter's super cute request. The guy plants a loud kiss right on the girl's cheek, pulling a massive glowing smile from her little face. But the cute vibe gets shattered when his wife smells meat on his breath, totally suspecting he was snacking on the sly. Already hiking down the mountain trail with the old master, the guy thinks over the lessons from that exhausting day. During the hike, the hunter kept pointing at different trees, teaching him exactly which ones were perfect for firewood. Plus, the old man also made the big guy stop every now and then to analyze animal droppings left on the path. Suddenly, the master throws his hand up, ordering Juin to stop moving right this second. Very carefully, the veteran hunter points to a specific spot in the thick brush. Eyes wide open, our MC is completely shocked by what he just spotted. In the bushes, a bizarre animal with horns is chewing on something looking like literally anything except a harmless rabbit. Completely shook, the guy wonders if that thing is actually a rabbit, since it looks like some crazy kangaroo hybrid. Then the little monster notices them and bares its sharp teeth, shooting them an insanely threatening glare. The master sees the animal still has a ton of energy, deciding it is the absolute perfect target for his student's first kill. He gives him a dead serious look, warning that taking down a wild beast that fights back is not going to be a walk in the park. The old man drops some wisdom, saying the intense feeling of your first hunt leaves a permanent mark on a man's soul. With that, the old man firmly orders the big guy to grab the arrow he gave him earlier to start the attack. Holding the bow, Juin listens to the master praise his brains and how fast he is adapting to this crazy unknown world. Stepping back, the old man declares that this first hunt belongs 100 to the young guy. While the wild beast growls, getting ready to charge, the master promises to teach him just how brutal mountain life really is. Taking short steps, the instructor gets close, whispering for the guy to move in closer to the target. Blindsiding his student, the old man tells him to aim straight for the animal's foot, explaining it is great practice for hitting moving targets. Prepping his aim, the guy gets the master's twisted logic: cripple the prey first, then finish the job. Watching his student's stance, the old man warns that the mountain plays fair and gives exactly 0 privileges to humans. He warns that if the guy keeps hesitating, one day he is going to end up as prey in the claws of these cruel creatures. With the bowstring drawn, Juin hesitates, thinking that just shooting the paw is only going to cause the animal useless pain. Frowning, our MC cannot understand why the old man is forcing such a sadistic tactic right out of the gate. Losing patience with the delay, the veteran hunter insists the big guy shoot the paw first and only aim for the head after. Without waiting for an invite, the bizarre beast leaps ferociously, charging full speed right at our MC. Staring the monster down midair, Juin's eyes sharpen as he remembers waking up in this bizarre world. The bitter memories of his own weak body rotting away inside that slave cage come flooding back with a vengeance. He sadly recalls the dead bodies decaying right next to him in a terrible place where humanity basically didn't exist. Watching the predator close in, the young guy admits he still has no clue how to survive here, but he is absolutely sure of one thing. He realizes the old master is forcing him to ditch his modern mindset so he can fully embrace the life of a hunter. Without hesitating for another second, the guy releases the bowstring, sending the powerful shot ripping through the... With terrifying accuracy, the arrow nails the animal's paw dead center mid-jump. The impact slams the creature into the ground, and it starts screaming in agony as it tumbles into the tall grass. Slowly lowering his weapon, our MC breathes heavy, super surprised he actually managed to hit such a fast target. Giving him 0 time to chill, the old master orders his student to fire again, leaving him shocked by how cold it is. Shrugging it off, Juin pulls another arrow, while the old man tells him to aim for the front paws now. Accepting his master's brutal process, the guy readies his bow, feeling he needs to crush any pity he has for the animal. To keep from going soft, the young guy tells himself to ignore the screams of agony and focus strictly on his final goal. Holding his stance steady, he mentally swears he has to be strong to secure safety and food for his new family. Seeing the absolute terror in the beast's eye, Juin accepts he does not care if he looks like a ruthless monster, as long as he can protect the ones he loves. Even knowing he could have ended the animal's suffering right at the start, he followed the cold orders to forge his own instincts. After the brutal hunt, the two sit down to rest, while the master ties up their dead prey in the middle of the clearing. Staring at his own hands, the big guy realizes there is 0 room for being a softie when it comes to jungle survival. Carrying a bunch of dead animals on his back, the old man holds the load out for the guy to haul home. Flashing a tired smile, our MC thanks the master for helping him through that exhausting day of learning. But the old man just points forward with his staff, saying they still need to go collect their last catch. Keeping his focus sharp, the young guy nods, getting ready for yet another round of training. However, when they get to the trap, they find a super cute, chubby little baby animal, totally different from those other monsters. The master notices this harmless critter is different, but tells his student to hurry up and finish the job anyway. Holding the bow, Juin hesitates for a sec, staring at the terrified little face of the poor defenseless bunny. Putting the weapon away, the big guy suggests they take the little guy back alive, so they can try raising it in the cabin's yard. Waving his hands frantically, the guy tries to explain to the old man that killing this cute baby is just straight-up cowardice. Caught completely off guard by his giant student acting so soft, the veteran hunter cannot hold back a genuine laugh. Finding the situation hilarious, the old man agrees to the idea of raising the baby, leaving Juin relieved he doesn't have to hurt the little guy. With that, old Gus orders him to grab the animal alive, getting a very firm yes from our MC Juin. Then the two of them walk through the thick forest, while the young hunter hauls the heavy sack on his back. The guy slowly creeps up and opens the sack super carefully so he can pop the little creature inside. Right then, the chubby little animal bolts and dives straight into a super thick bush in the woods. Later on, absolute peace takes over the humble wooden cabin hidden away deep in that massive forest. Walking in, the guy thinks about how in his old life he had 0 hope of having a family or any real goals. But grinding this hard feels kind of weird, maybe, because he finally got the family he always wanted. Now he feels like he actually has a legit reason to stay alive and push himself every single day. Suddenly, the young guy spots something on the wooden table and stops what he is doing, totally curious. He notices some wooden boards covered in mysterious writing, figuring it has gotta be this world's language. Then the guy realizes this is his golden ticket to finally learn how to read the local tongue. Pointing at the board awkwardly, Juin asks Master Gus to teach him how to read those letters. Surprised by the guy's request, Gus asks if he seriously wants to learn to read and gets a super eager yes. Scratching his head in thought, the old hunter accepts the challenge to teach the big guy how to read. With that, the two walk over to the corner of the room to grab the rest of the study supplies. Digging through the shelf, the old master mentions the guy is going to need a few other items to study. Holding the boards, the young guy hands everything to his master, asking with total hype to start the lesson ASAP. The old man tells the guy to follow him, getting a super excited confirmation from his new student. Locked in, Juin starts practicing his writing with a quill, trying his absolute hardest to draw the letters. Watching him grind, Gus thinks the guy is a total mystery and wonders why he even wants to learn to read. The old man remembers buying those boards back in the day when he dreamed of getting hired by a top noble. He remembers it took him forever to learn to read, and if he knew how tragic his life would turn out, he wouldn't have even tried. Shaking his head, the hunter decides to push those depressing thoughts away since all that is in the past now. He stays focused on his mission, planning to scout the mountains for any clues about those dreaded goblins. He knows those creatures get insanely active during springtime, making the forest way more dangerous. Even as a total rookie, the young guy is learning stuff way too fast, proving he has what it takes to outclass any hunter. Walking in the dark, the old man feels his busted leg act up and figures the monsters must be super close. With a look filled with pure hatred, the old man silently vows to eliminate every single one of those beasts. The next day, the sun beats down on the humble wooden cabin, bringing a way more chill vibe. Inside, Dorothy is sewing a new outfit for Lizzie, who is super hyped and asking when her dress will be done. Laughing at how anxious the little one is, Dorothy jokes that she has already asked that exact question a million times. Suddenly, a noise at the door grabs both of their attention, making the young mom call out her husband's name. Our MC walks into the cabin and is greeted by little Lizzie running at him, screaming his name. Holding the girl in his arms, the guy listens to her brag proudly about the new clothes her mom just sewed. But when he drops his hunting sack on the floor, he notices the bag starts twitching in a really weird way. Pointing at the sack, the blonde little girl gets scared and screams when she realizes something is thrashing around inside. Curious, she asks if it is some kind of magic trick, and the guy laughs, saying he is about to show them the truth. Crouching down, he unties the knot using just one hand while holding his daughter, leaving Dorothy totally impressed. Then the young wife steps up carefully to help her husband open the mystery hunting sack. Out of nowhere, two long fluffy ears pop out of the bag, giving the girls a mini jump scare. Seeing the creature move so fast, the little girl lets out a surprised squeak from the safety of her new dad's arms. Smiling, Juin announces he brought home a real live rabbit, making them both super curious about the animal. Gently, the guy asks them to hold on a sec while he pulls the animal out of the sack. He grips the rabbit's little body firmly to pull it out of the bag as carefully as possible. As soon as the bunny is free, the young mom steps back surprised when she notices the little guy has a really weird shape. Completely mesmerized by how cute it is, little Lizzie stares at the bunny with her eyes sparkling with joy. But then the little girl notices something off and shouts in surprise that the little animal looks kind of weird. Focusing on the tiny rabbit's head, they spot something super unusual growing right between its ears. To everyone's shock, the animal has a small pointy horn, proving it is actually a magical creature. Thinking the critter is adorable, Lizzie tries to get closer, but her mom carefully tells her to back off. The young mom warns that the animal has a horn, which means it could end up being pretty dangerous for them. Determined to protect her daughter, the girl announces she is going to catch the bunny herself to keep things safe. With her hands out, the young woman leans in slowly to try and grab the little invader once and for all. Surprised by her own reflexes, she manages to snatch the little guy easily and wonders if it actually worked. While the little one cheers, Dorothy thinks it is super weird she caught a wild rabbit that easily. Then the little animal starts kicking weakly, catching the girl's attention that something is definitely wrong. Examining the rabbit up close, she notices its little paw is injured, and it looks like it is in a lot of pain. Worried, the little girl asks if the animal is hurt, and her mom confirms it is hurting really bad. Running over to her dad, the girl tells him the rabbit is injured, leaving the guy thinking about what to do. Then our MC asks his wife to hand over the little animal so he can take a closer look. Super carefully, the young woman places the shaking rabbit into her husband's steady hands. Holding the tiny animal with both hands, the guy gets ready to use his healing skills on it. Suddenly, a bright golden light starts glowing from Juin's hands, totally wrapping around the critter. Seeing the magic happen, the little girl happily notices the bunny calmed down and isn't feeling any pain anymore. Blown away by her dad's power, the little girl jumps for joy and screams praises for the hero of the house. Feeling awkward about his daughter's genuine hype, the guy lets out a fake cough to hide how embarrassed he is. Next, he holds out the healed rabbit while little Lizzie runs across the room. Holding a straw basket, the little girl asks her dad to look at what she brought for their new pet. Our MC gently settles the little rabbit down inside the basket his daughter is holding. Curled up in the basket, the little animal closes its eyes and falls into a peaceful sleep under the girl's watchful eye. Speaking in his own language, Juan asks Dorothy to take care of the rabbit, leaving little Lizzie confused. Translating for her daughter, the mom explains that dad wants her to be the one in charge of taking care of the bunny. With her eyes shining with happiness, the little one promises she is gonna take amazing care of her fluffy new friend. Sitting on the floor with them, the guy mentally vows to protect them from absolutely any danger. Trading a look full of pure love, and understanding, the couple smiles happily knowing they finally have a real home. The cold, dark night wraps around the humble cabin isolated in the middle of the mountains. Inside, little Lizzie rests in bed sleeping super peacefully. Watching the girl, Juan thinks about how human beings are naturally greedy creatures. He admits that as soon as he got a home, he immediately wanted a bigger house for Dorothy and Lizzie. Now that he has a family, he also really wants to learn how to read and write. Looking at the young woman, he knows she is the biggest reason he is so grateful. Noticing how tired his wife looks, he figures she worked hard all day and definitely needs to chill. He walks up quietly and puts his hands on her shoulders in a super sweet way. Dorothy jumps a little at the gesture but shyly thanks him for the affectionate touch. Starting a soft massage on her shoulders, the guy makes her feel an incredibly comforting warmth. Using calm movements, he keeps melting away all the tension built up in the young woman's body. Feeling totally relaxed, she rests her delicate hands right on top of Juan's firm hands. Then the young woman leans back, resting sweetly against her husband's broad chest. Under the soft light of the lantern, the couple shares a quiet and intensely intimate moment. A bit later, the candle blows out, leaving the bedroom in absolute peaceful darkness. Meanwhile, a carriage travels down a dirt road heading straight for the big city. Inside, the village leader complains the trip is exhausting, but he knows it is going to be totally worth it. He thinks about how most healing mages are usually weak and have a super small build. But the mountain giant is completely different from anything he has ever seen in his life. The old man smiles, already thinking about all the gold coins he is going to make selling this intel. Meanwhile, the other passengers argue about whether their country should summon a legendary hero too. They gossip about rumors saying the enemy kingdom already summoned some overpowered warrior. But they doubt this warrior is even real since nobody has actually seen one in centuries. Remembering how close they are to the border, the elder decides to sell the secret fast so he can make a run for it. After all, an enemy invasion could pop off at literally any second in that danger zone. Back at the cabin, the little girl Dorothy plays happily with the tiny horned rabbit. Her mom jokingly warns her the pet isn't food, leaving the little one pretty confused. Laughing, the girl says she knows perfectly well you are not supposed to eat baby bunnies. But her mom lightly pinches her cheeks when she notices her daughter was literally drooling. Remembering her chore, little Dorothy runs off in a hurry to get the animals food. She announces out loud that she is going to feed the new rabbits out in the yard. But she stops in the garden thinking it is super weird that her dad is building a fence out there. Suddenly, the little girl gets it and remembers the chore she needs to finish. Smiling, she walks over to the pen where all the small animals are being kept. Looking closely, she notices one of the big rabbits and thinks it looks pretty ugly. Sweetly, the girl holds out a bunch of fresh grass to feed the animals. She tells the rabbits she is super busy today and asks them to behave and eat everything. Right then, she spots a glowing bush and realizes there is even more food over it. Seeing her own hands glowing, the little one realizes she can use magic just like her dad. She happily daydreams about using her new op power to multiply all the meat they have in the house. The little girl jumps for joy, dreaming of endless feasts back in the cabin. Inside the house, the mom brushes the wolf pelt, knowing the merchant caravan is going to arrive soon. But she hesitates to sell the pelt since it is from the very first hunt her husband pulled off. She thinks about how Juan desperately needs new clothes and shoes plus some other basic stuff for the house. Looking at a tiny rabbit pelt, she sadly concludes that won't be nearly enough to cover it. With a determined look, the wife makes a seriously tough call to get what her family needs. She ties back her long brown hair, getting ready for what she has to do next. Without hesitating, the young woman brings the sharp scissors up to chop off her own hair. A little while later, Juan opens the door, happily announcing he is finally home. Running excitedly, little Dorothy throws herself into her dad's arms, getting a super warm hug. But when he looks at his wife, the guy freezes, noticing something is incredibly different about her. Shocked, he hears his daughter ask if he noticed the huge makeover too. Then Lizzie flashes a radiant smile, showing that she cut off her own hair to sell it to the merchants.